you, Councilmember Bunker. Thank you, Dr. Rice. Now I'm going to turn it over to our City Attorney, Pam Aiken, to give people the advice that they need to weigh in on the entire meeting this evening. Ms. Aiken.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. The material for each item on the agenda is available 24 hours a day at www.mycloudwetter.com. When addressing the City Council, the member of the public must first state his or her name and his or her address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to appeal any decision made by the City Council for any matter considered at the meeting may need a verbatim record of the item. A video of this meeting may be requested at the Office of Communications or online at www.mycloudwetter.com. Please silence all cell phones and other noise-making devices. Any person with a disability requiring assistance, auxiliary aids, and services for this meeting may notify the city clerk. The City of Clearwater is using Zoom to hold the May 7th, 2020 virtual council meeting. Zoom is a cloud platform for video and audio conferencing, collaboration, chat, and webinars across mobile devices, desktops, telephones, and room systems. In order to ensure the public has the ability to view the meeting, the city's public communications department will broadcast the meeting live on the city's website, www.myclearwater.com/government/council-meeting-streaming-videos. On Facebook at www.facebook.com/City of Clearwater. On YouTube, www.youtube.com/myclearwater, as well as the following public access TV channels: Spectrum, Channel 638, Frontier Channel 30, and WOW Channel 15. The broadcast will have closed captioning. This virtual platform does not require the public to purchase or download any additional software equipment to watch this meeting. Aside from the Zoom platform, the participants will be appearing remotely. The public will have no discernible difference in their ability to watch the meeting. Citizens wishing to provide comments on the agenda item are encouraged to do so in advance through written comment. The city has established the following 4 options to ensure public comment for a virtual meeting. 1, e-comments via Granicus. E-comments is integrated with the published meeting agenda. Individuals may review the agenda item details and indicate their position on the item. You will be prompted to set up a user profile to allow you to comment, which will become a part of the official public record. The e-comment period is open from the time the agenda is published. Comments received during the meeting will become part of the official record if posted prior to the closing of the public comment. The city clerk will read received comments into the record. 2, email. Individuals may submit written comments or videos to clearwatercouncil@myclearwater.com. All comments received by 5 p.m. the day before the meeting, May 6th, will become part of the official record. The city clerk will read received comments into the record. 3, call-in. During the meeting, individuals will be able to call in to 562-4646 and be placed on air to speak on an individual item. 4, council chambers. Additionally, like any other council meeting, the public may provide public comment at the main library, council chambers, 100 North Osceola Avenue. Due to COVID-19, all speakers desiring to appear in person will be subject to all applicable emergency measures in place to prevent further spreading of COVID-19. These 4 public comment options established and provided for the virtual city council meeting comply with section 286.0114 and section 120.54 Florida statutes. The city has published an agenda as well as included the notice to the public as provided in our city code on the items and topics that will be discussed at the virtual city council meeting. Additionally, the public has been given the opportunity to provide public comment during the meeting at the terminal at City Hall and online public comment forum within a reasonable proximity in time before the meeting and during via public comment voicemail, online public comment, and the public comment video upload. Moreover, sections 286.0114 paren 4 paren C Florida statute specifically authorizes the city to prescribe procedures or forms for an individual to use in order to inform the board or commission or city of a desire to be heard, to indicate his or her support, opposition, or neutrality on a proposition. The city, through its 4 public comment options, has provided 4 different procedures and forms to indicate, among other things, support, opposition, and neutrality on items and topics to be discussed at the virtual city council meeting. The city provided information on how to submit its comments in the notice to the public on its webpage and via social media channels. Council members, are you comfortable with all the notice provisions set forth and these uniform rules of procedures we have established for this virtual meeting?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aiken. That was a mouthful. And we appreciate all the citizens that are participating with us. We understand this is a difficult process. We look forward to the day when we can be back in chambers and sitting before you and communicate face to face. We're going to start out the evening with a presentation by Senator Ed Hooper, who has come back from the legislative session and has an update for us. Senator Hooper, thank you for being here this evening, sir.
We're not hearing any sound.
I have no audio, Joel, for him.
How about now?
We do now. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good to see all of you, even if it's electronically. Hopefully soon we will be able to meet face to face and get further updates and work together. To the 2 of you that are newly elected, aren't you thrilled to be in this scenario? And I wish you well. Mayor and council members, I thought it would be an appropriate time. I'm assuming each of you is being bombarded by your constituents, your citizens, those that are not working and wonder where their unemployment compensation is. I can assure you that 160 legislators every day spend 8 hours at least dealing with that issue alone, and that's all we do all day, every day, including some Saturdays and Sundays. So I can assure you, as today at 4 o'clock, I was on the phone with the governor's office, letting him know once again that please fix this. We need a break to do something else. So he knows, he hears from each of us regularly that he knows there's a disaster. So I'm going to give you just a short scenario. If you'll remember, probably the day you got elected, unemployment was 2.8%. And the Department of Economic Opportunity had about 25 call takers in Tallahassee to respond to concerns and questions about unemployment. And at a peak day for them then was 500 calls a day. And they were handling, even though that system was under-designed, they were handling that just fine, and there were no complaints from employers or employees about lack of payment or process to do that. And one day the switch flipped, and 500 calls a day turned into 25,000 the next day. And with the next week, that number turned into 60,000 calls a day. That totally, as Florida being one of, I know of 49 states that their system could not handle that type of volume. And every state except Alaska, I believe, their system has crashed, and they are dealing not quite the same level as Florida, but they're all dealing with this issue. So the governor has taken a number of steps to try to make this work more palatable and more efficiently. We've gone from 25 call takers to 2,000 He has brought employees from every department in the state into the Department of Economic Opportunity and taken a 3-week training period for those call takers to a training period of 2 days. He has brought in 7 complete new servers to augment the server that the state already had in use and was operating with. So, and a team of computer engineers, and I'm not one of those and I don't want to be, but those are smart people and they're working round the clock. He's implemented a new app-based application system. He's implemented a paper application that every FedEx store in the state has printed those and has them on site, and will even mail those to Tallahassee for you if you want to fill yours out by paper. And there are people today that do not have computer or access to a computer, that's their only way to apply. Now, here's where the problem seems to be the norm. And I hear, I might hear from the same person within the last 2 weeks 30 times, sometimes more than once a day, often. Here's the problem with the majority of the people that have not started getting their payments is their application may not be 100% complete. The biggest omission, people are reluctant to put their Social Security number on that application. It's a requirement by the federal government that they must have that number. So that will cause your application to be delayed. Secondly, you would be surprised how many people are applying time after time after time that legally are not eligible for unemployment compensation. They were fired or they quit their employment prior to this state of emergency occurring and would not be entitled under any scenario to receive that monthly stipend, pitiful as it is, of $275. And even on top of that, the IRS and the federal government system is not capable of keeping up. So the $600 weekly for 12 weeks, in addition to the state's stipend, is slowed down because of the federal government's system not being able to work at the speed it needs to work at. So the governor is committed every day to keep trying to make this better. We know that he just ordered his Auditor General to do a thorough investigation into the company that built this system. It was brought online. Actually, this was awarded in 2011. And the company that built this system paid pretty substantial fines when it was implemented because it was kind of a mess when it went online. But it was working fine at 2.8% unemployment. So I can tell you that if you hear from your citizens, don't be afraid to refer them to my office. My staff, even though my staff is working remote, they pick up every message that comes to our office and tries to respond that day to that request and tries to help these people figure out is there an issue that they cannot get their application taken care of. So we're doing that every day. We want to be a resource to you. We're working with Congressman Bill Arakis and Congressman Chris' office to help marry up the federal piece with the state piece. And I have no doubt that when we go back to Tallahassee, and I'm afraid we'll probably go by July, because our budget starts July 1st, and just the last 2 weeks of March, the sales tax revenue for the state is what we live on. Our collections were down $770 million in 12 days of March. So April is going to be probably $1.5 billion, and May will be probably that bad or worse. So our $93 billion budget has no chance of being implemented on July 1st because we can't spend deficit. We have to pay as we go and have the money to do that. So I will tell you, and my staff will kill me for this, our number is 727-771-2102. And I cover, District 16 covers every part of Clearwater. My line starts at Bel Air Road and goes all the way to State Road 52 in Pasco County. So if it's a Clearwater resident, they're my constituent, and we want to help them. So I know that you want to reach out and scream at the governor, and if you feel like you need to do that, he will put that letter in the stack of millions that he's probably already got. Trust me, he hears from 160 legislators every day, get this thing fixed, whatever it takes. And he's committed to do that, and I believe he will. It's working better, but it's still not working adequately. And with that, I'll be glad to talk about this issue or answer any questions that any of you might have.
Are there any other issues from the legislative session that you want to update us on?
Well, I can tell you,
as a questions of the council.
Yeah, as of 3 o'clock today, we've had 61 more deaths in the last 24 hours due to the virus, bringing almost the total is 38,832 confirmed cases in our state today. It's impacting usually at least one person's dying in somewhere between 12 and 20 counties every day. The number is going to exceed 2,000 before June the 1st, I'm convinced. So, and I know this is real. This is not the flu. This is a real scenario, and it's impacting ours. And my mask is in my pocket because I am a senior citizen. This is impacting our senior community at a much higher impact. Probably over 65% of the deaths listed are 65 and over, and a large majority of those are in assisted and nursing homes and ALFs in this state. And the state has come in. I'll give you a for instance. Today in Pasco County, a commissioner called me today that their health department wanted to go into a nursing home and conduct tests. They were forbidden to make entry into those premises to test for the virus because the health doesn't want to know it's in the community. The families of those patients don't want to know that their loved one has been exposed to a virus. So we call the governor's office, and the governor has this wonderful thing called the National Guard, that somehow they can make entry into these places even when somebody doesn't want them to come in. So Pasco County will start their test of their assisted living and nursing homes, I predict really soon, like maybe tomorrow, whether they want to or not. All the other counties seem to be cooperating. They know that this is the hot spot to get it under control. And I'll open it up to questions if there are any from the council members. And but in case I don't get a chance to close, Mayor and council members, this being a day of prayer, I give thanks every day for the nurses, doctors, your first responders that take care of you and your citizens, the teachers that wish they were back in the classroom. The new normal is going to be really different than the normal we had 2 months ago. But hopefully it will be acceptable and we will not have a second wave. That's the scary part, is what will come in November. And I thank you for the opportunity to update you on this.
Thank you, Senator. Questions from the council? Member Beckman.
I have a question about, I want to know how you feel about our state as well as most states in the nation who are doing a gradual opening and disregarding the CDC guidelines to have a consistent 2-week decline. What do you think about our governor doing that?
Thank you for the question, council member. And I look forward to meeting you someday and us having a chat, and I get to know you and you can find out hopefully not everything about me. But, our governor's been very careful, I believe, about trying to understand. This is going to sound really hard and cruel, and it's not meant to be. Every state today is juggling with, even New York, which is, and still probably is, the epicenter of the nation, is juggling with what cost do you lock down your citizenry? How many deaths are acceptable to prevent a total economic collapse of every city, every county, every state, and our nation? That's a hard balance. I'm glad I don't have to make that call. He's advised by some pretty smart people that keep us updated. You've noticed that he has carved out Southeast Florida, those 3 counties, to keep them from even going to a phase 1 scenario. Tomorrow, he may open up Palm Beach County to a modified phase 1 opportunity. Their numbers are better than Broward and Miami-Dade. I think he's doing, none of us have a playbook for this scenario. We don't have historical perspective to look back on unless you go back 100 years and deal with the Spanish flu that killed 50 million. But the world was different, obviously, back then. So I think he's doing a balance as best he can. He's 41 years old and he's got 3 young kids under the age of 4. So he keeps that in mind. He never loses sight of my family is just as important to me as our families are to us. And he has a newborn that's about 1 month old. So I think he's pretty firmly planted and takes each decision on its merit and tries to make the best decision he can. We don't all agree with them, but he gets the big money. And at the end of the day, I hope he takes good advice from his staff and his advisors and makes the best decision.
Any other questions, Councilmember Beckman?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Bunker?
So if we see the deaths rise fairly dramatically in the next few weeks, what will it take to turn things around and get another stay-at-home order?
A fair question. And, one reason that we're seeing an increase in the daily death count is there's an increase in the daily test count. We're administering thousands and thousands of tests every day. In Pinellas, you can go now without symptoms and get tested at no cost, as in with most counties. So obviously, the more tests you administer, the higher that number is going to be. And then it's easier. It's never easy, but it's easier to confirm that death was a direct cause of COVID-19 and put that on the death certificate instead of pneumonia or flu or heart failure or lung failure. It's the more widespread we do testing, the more those numbers are going to go up. We're still only every test we administer. I think the Florida average is probably one of the better ones in the nation. We're returning about a 4-point-something% of those tested as tested positive, which means 93-point-something%, or not, I'm not a math major, obviously, 95-point-something% is testing negative. Most states would kill to get to 8%. And we're trailing along at about half of that number. So warm weather, the climate we live in certainly helps. The virus does not like warm weather. It does not like sunshine. We're blessed from that perspective to try to mitigate this as fast as we possibly can.
Any other questions, Councilmember Bunker?
Well, more testing would show more infections. I would hope that it wouldn't increase the number of deaths. If we're waiting to test people posthumously to decide that they died of COVID-19 rather than pneumonia, well, that's a little late. It seems, with the governor ordering 100,000 tests from China, that still leaves us 21,300,000 people short of just having a basic test. And the country's got to do better than this. You know that, though. So, I just want to forward the frustration that I and practically everyone in the country feels.
Councilmember Hamilton or Albritton?
I'll just say it's great to see my friend, Mr. Hooper. We go way back, probably back before I had gray hair and he had more hair. But but I really appreciate the work he does up in Tallahassee representing us. He's always been available and attentive, and I appreciate what you're doing, sir.
Yeah, good. Good to see you again. Last time I saw you, I think was in Tallahassee. So I appreciate everything you do for our community. As Mr. Bunker was saying, as the testing goes up, we're also going to have more people, more cases exposed. But I know they're looking at the positivity numbers on that too, and making sure that it's, tries to balance. I realize that the shutdown in the stay-at-home order was to keep the hospitals from overflowing, and that was our main concern because we didn't want to have the hospitals not be able to handle everybody. Florida seems to be way ahead on that. We've got a lot of hospitals that are almost going out of business because they have nothing going on. So I think it's good that we get back. Unfortunately, everything you do in life has a risk attached to it. So, but I think that Governor DeSantis is doing a good job on looking at the numbers and making the best decision he can on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Albritton. Senator, I do have two quick questions for you. Obviously, you're starting to see shortfalls in sales tax. Where do you think some of the cuts may come in the budget so that we can try to anticipate that? Will they be spilling down to us? We've lost your sound again, Senator.
Just a second. Am I back?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. We have all contemplated that. We just passed a record budget in March of 93 point something billion dollars. And now and about 80% of the state funding is derived from sales tax revenue. So when you start losing that type of millions of dollars, I would say that as hard as a lot of us work to get projects that may have been important to your community and every community, I don't hold out much hope for any of those being funded. I'm concerned that teacher pay, which I think is vitally important to raise the teacher pay in this state, is in jeopardy. I'm concerned that every nonprofit, everything that we do that helps people, the disabled, the elderly, the veterans, I think it will be an across-the-board adjustment that will take us back to the 2009, 2010 budget levels. I was there. It was no fun to be eliminating 10,000 jobs that had people attached to it. We may go through that same exercise and beyond, but I think our budget will change dramatically from 93 billion, probably somewhere in the high 80 billions. That gets everybody.
You know that we're going to be discussing a potential letter to the governor later in the agenda. If we come to the conclusion that the unemployment compensation in the state is too small, when would be the best time and the best way to address that with state legislators and the governor?
An excellent question, Mayor, and I have a twofold answer. One is, as of yesterday, the state had already paid out $1.2 billion in unemployment compensation to, I can't remember how many thousand recipients that was. So that number is going to continue to rise. I'm convinced that the unemployment compensation trust fund, where all the employer contributions are deposited for just this scenario, is going to run dry. How much fun is it going to be to go back to session and now tell every employer in the state that's trying to hang on that, oh, by the way, you're going to have to increase your contribution to the unemployment compensation trust fund? They come kicking and screaming to stop that, rightfully so in a lot of instances. So I'm worried about that, but I think that will all occur in a regular session. At 5 o'clock today, there was the deadline. There was enough people that queried conducting a special session to address that. I don't think it met the muster of the percentage required, 3/5 of each body. So as of today, there will not be a special session. But I think anything that deals with that will be conducted during the regular session of March, April, and early May.
Okay. Thank you again, Senator, for coming. We do appreciate your time, giving us and all the constituents who are listening this evening your direct phone number. And I'm sure that will
Don't tell my staff I did
that will
that.
increase some volume. You have a
Yeah,
question,
thank you.
Councilmember Hamilton, or are you waving
Yeah,
goodbye?
if I may, Ed's answer to that last question, and I know I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking to Ed, he understands it, but it's going to be very difficult to go back to the employers and say, you've got to give more money to this unemployment fund when the unemployment of these people was not under the control of the employer himself. These aren't employees that we fired for cause or fired for any reason other than the fact that the state shut us down. So, and I know Senator Hooper understands this, but it's really going to be difficult. And you're talking about putting more businesses out of business by doing something of that nature that are all, on top of the businesses that aren't going to recover from the present pandemic. So it's really a very tenuous situation. And I know the senator understands that, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah. I can assure you that the Florida Chamber of Commerce and all the local chambers will be engaged in that discussion and trying to find a balance that doesn't further harm the employers in this state. And you're a prime example of what's considered a small employer, even though that's considered less than 500 employees, by the way. You are the backbone of our employment base in this state. And you know as well as I do, there's going to be a multitude of businesses and retail that are not going to survive this. They're going to be gone forever. And that's just going to continue to make our unemployment numbers look worse than they're going to look a month from now. I'll be glad to trade seats with you for the next 6 or 8 months if you'd be willing to work for as cheap as I work. But it's not going to be fun, but it's we will get through it somehow, some way. And I'll leave by thanking you. I know that you deal with tough stuff every day. You're just starting your budget discussion. How much fun is that going to be? And I wish you well, and I look forward to being able to meet and greet and have a cup of coffee someday and soon. And let's work on things that will make Clearwater an even better city to be in, and the gem of the Tampa Bay area and all of Florida. And
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good evening. I would ask if there are any amendments to the minutes of the April 16th, 2020 council meeting.
You will get somehow, some way.
Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. At this time, I would ask if there are any citizens to be heard on any item that is not on the agenda this evening. And we are going to take this slow because I think there are some folks at the City Hall chambers. There may also be some people on the line. So we will make certain that anybody who wants to speak has an opportunity. Is there anyone in the council chambers for citizens to be heard?
Yes, we do have 2 members of the public wishing to speak.
Okay, very good. If they could state their names, and I'm assuming that they have filled out the appropriate cards.
Correct.
And we respectfully ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Gary Lee, Clearwater, Florida. I know we're in the midst of COVID-19, but I'd like to bring up a different subject. Again, Imagine Clearwater. I'd like to reemphasize the point that the people were not happy with the current plans of Imagine Clearwater, as was evidenced by the number of people who ran for the council seats and the mayor seats. There were 9 for 3 spots, or 13 for 3 spots. In previous year, there were only 4 for 2 spots. Usually that kind of active participation insinuates that the community is not happy with what's going on. And I think Imagine Clearwater was one of the main drivers, because most of you who ran put a plank in your platform about Imagine Clearwater. So I just want to remind you of that commitment and that concern here in the community. I hope that we see changes soon, and especially we get rid of that pagoda and those cane trees that are down around the pond. And especially as the senator was just talking about funds, etc. We know that Imagine Clearwater is very expensive, $64 million. I would hope that we would go even slower now until we have determined what the economy is going to look like, and what kind of money we do have to spend on such an expensive park. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Appreciate you coming out tonight. Anyone else in chambers?
One
We have
more.
Marilyn Thurman. One more. Okay. Thank you, Aaron.
I spoke to the timekeeper about getting a nameplate for myself and a, dedicated parking space. He's going to work on that for me. Mr. Hibbert, I sent this to you in the form of an email. It is a quote from George Orwell.
Could you state your name for the record, sir?
I am Mr. Haluba. I was
Thank you.
announced before I came in, so you all have got your eye on me, just like George Orwell. Threats to freedom of speech, writing, and action, though often trivial in isolation, are cumulative in their effect, in their negative effect, and unless checked, lead to a general disrespect for the rights of the citizen. I also agree that Imagine Clearwater should be put on a shelf, hopefully, for good. I think it's a total waste of money. But as far as recycling goes, I think it's a good program and a good movement. But as we saw, unfortunately, Ms. Beckham, it's not a essential city service. That's what we recently agreed. People can also be recycled or stage a comeback. I am a strict believer in very strict term limits. If we had strict term limits like we should have, we would have a different mayor. And I've got a minute, so does that qualify as a civics lesson, Mr. Hamilton?
And then we have Ms. Thurman on the telephone line for citizens to be heard. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Mayor Hibbert and City Council men and women. I just wanted to basically call and share something good. Recently, you all reinstated the services for the pickup of refuge, and I had someone who came and did an amazing job of clearing out zillions of leaves. I had over 100 bags of leaves and things that were in the yard and brush. And there was a gentleman that came by, and I did get his name. It was Robert. He did a phenomenal job. So if you all can envision 120 some odd bags in front of a yard, among some other things, and this huge piece of machinery that he had to use in order to very strategically position it to gather everything up. He did an amazing job. Actually, he kind of drew a crowd outside because he did such a great job. And I did give Mr. Glossier, I believe it is, I gave him a call today to share that with him. I know often we let people know when things are bad, but I needed him to know that he did an outstanding job. He got out anything that was not picked up by the big arm of the truck. He got out and he made sure that it was picked up and there was no damage to the ground. Just wanted to give him the kudos on that. So wanted to do that. And so since I'm talking about that, I guess I can go into this, and it's important. And I say justifiably, we should continue to give all of the kudos and the accolades to all of our first frontline responders in the medical field, our police and paramedics and so on, well deserved without question. Again, I just want us not to forget those who work in areas like solid waste, who work in our Walmarts and so on and so on. I want us not to forget those who serve us and who have really gotten us through this very awkward time for most of us. And so I just wanted to give them kudos as well. So thank you all very much.
Ms. Turman, thank you for catching somebody doing something right. Really appreciate
Yes,
you
sir.
calling in and identifying that employee. Have a great evening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kimberly Logan on the line.
Oh, how are you?
Good evening, Ms. Logan. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm calling because I have a concern. I understand that we've opened up all of the pools. The Long Center is I'm going to open on the 11th. I was told. Here's my issue. The Long Center is an indoor facility. They have a swim team there. Now, granted, the swim team has said that they are going to, they're sending most of the team to other facilities, but some of the kids are still going to be going to the Long Center. You have this virus, which the kids do not use the steps because the swim team doesn't use the steps because of the way they swim at. You have all of these kids with this indoor stuff. You're putting them at risk. And not only them, their parents. And I really think that needs to be taken into consideration because at this point, I know it's like an optional thing for you to take your child there, but they need to be made aware that this cannot happen because we've had people come in and have diseases that people can catch very easily at the Long Center. And I really think that something needs to be done to ensure that the children that are swimming there are, safeguarded.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Logan. We will look into that. Okay.
Okay. And I thank you guys.
Mr. Horn, is the Long Center opening on the 11th?
Yes, Mayor, all of our pools are supposed to open next week.
Okay.
We will take Ms. Logan's comments and we will evaluate what the threats are to our kids. The Long Center is an indoor pool, and it's the only one that's indoor. So usually it's one of our more safer environments, but we'll see what needs to be done. We will not put someone at risk. I think we can determine if anyone's going to be at risk in that environment.
And we have your information, Ms. Logan. So if there's additional information that we receive, we will get back to you with it, okay?
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for taking the time to call in today. Is there anyone else on the phone, Joelle? Anyone else in chambers? I'm assuming not. Ms. Aiken, I've got a question for you. Is there anyone that is sitting on this council currently that does not meet the requirements of the charter
No, sir, not that I am aware of.
under term limits?
Oh, no, sir, not at all.
Okay, thank you. Now I would ask if there are any consent items. Yes.
I do have one comment that was submitted electronically.
Oh, thank you.
Ms. Kathy Flaherty, the CRA board will be reviewing a proposal for the Cleveland Street Festival area on May 18th. The design is horrendous. It consists of a concrete pad with metal poles with colored decorations. This area needs trees, benches, and nice community decorations, not something that looks like an inner city playground. The Papaya Street Plaza on Clearwater Beach is a nice example of a community area. The public meetings did not even have current street plans presented, and only 2 questions were allowed to be asked, which were, where is the green space? And that was it. Horrible designs. The city had other designs which were great. What happened to those? This has been an ongoing project for years, and this is the worst design ever. I am asking the council to look into the design before the May 18th meeting.
Okay. Nothing else, Ms. Call?
That's it.
Okay. I would ask if there are any citizens or council members to remove any of the consent items 7.1 through 7.7.
No.
Don't see anyone in chambers. Do I have a motion? Mr. Hamilton, you're on mute.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item 8.1. Better not take your glasses off.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Approve the substantial amendment to the City of Clearwater's 2016, 2017, 2019, 2020 Consolidated Plan and 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan to reallocate unencumbered funding and to budget for additional funding provided by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, to address needs resulting from the COVID-19 emergency. Mr. Lang.
Good evening. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
My name is Chuck Lane, Assistant Director, Economic Development and Housing Department. As we discussed on Monday, this item will allow us to use $492,592 of CDBG funds recently allocated to the City of Clearwater by the Federal CARES Act. It also reprograms encumbered current year funding towards activities that will address COVID-19 impacts. We've added something to the staff recommendation for this item since Monday's work session. The additional request is to approve the substantial amendment to the consolidated plan. The consolidated plan amendment accomplishes 2 things. It includes the additional money by updating the anticipated resources table within the plan. And we're adding an emergency disaster goal. Having this goal in our plan will give us more flexibility to add activities we find that may help address COVID-19, the crisis, and God forbid, to address another declared disaster during this planning cycle should one occur. The consolidated plan and annual action plan guide our expenditures of federal funds, which of course are Community Development Block Grant Program money and Home Investment Partnership Program money. The substantial amendment to the annual action plan is where the funding details lie. So I'll give you an overview of the 3 primary activities we are creating by amending the annual action plan. All are in direct response to COVID-19. Firstly, HUD is eliminating the requirement that we spend no more than 15% of our allocation on public services. Our current year public services amount is $114,606. We are planning to reprogram $131,000 for additional public services to address impacts caused by the pandemic. Secondly, we will provide rent, mortgage, and utility payment assistance to qualifying Clearwater residents that do not qualify for Pinellas County's program, which is currently active. We'll use unencumbered SHIP money, State Housing Initiative Partnership Program money, as well as $300,000 from the home program for a total project budget of about $600,000. We'll manage the program until the funds are depleted on a first come, first served basis. It's important to know that the county's program is serving qualifying Clearwater residents that are living in incorporated Clearwater. They estimate spending about $75 million on the program countywide. Pinellas County's program serves households up to 200% of the poverty rate. Our program is going to serve the gap between the maximum income that the county will serve up to 80% of area median income. So we're serving a fairly narrow window, but all people being served, but that whole income category between 0 and 80% is being served. We realize that there are a lot of folks out there that are over the 80% limit that are struggling, but these funds have strong restrictions, and we need to serve low to moderate income families with this funding. Grants will provide for up to $4,000 for up to 3 months back rent, mortgage and past due utility payments. Payments for unpaid expenses prior to April will not be eligible. And lastly, later in the evening, Denise Sanderson will present our proposed Clearwater Back to Business program. Denise will go into greater detail on it, but in simple terms, it's a grant and technical assistance program. Qualifying home-based businesses will be eligible for up to $2,000 in grant funding, and qualifying brick and mortar businesses will be eligible for up to $5,000 in grant funding. A qualifying business will be eligible for up to $1,000 in technical assistance as well. CDBG will be used to fund the home-based business program, and if funds are available, CDBG will also be used to assist funding for some of the qualifying brick and mortar businesses. We have current CDBG agreements with Prospera and Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation. They currently provide technical assistance under our CDBG Micro Enterprise Program. They, along with Amplify Clearwater, will provide technical assistance to businesses under this program. Economic development staff will perform the initial screening of applicants to determine qualifications. The 3 nonprofits that I just mentioned will conduct a deeper dive to determine what types of technical assistance are best suited for each business. Technical services include legal services, accounting services, marketing guidance, and general business assistance. The annual action plan amendment budgets the entire special CDBG allocation towards this program, with $394,774 towards grants and technical assistance, and an additional $98,518 towards related administrative costs. I'll take questions, please.
Any questions for Mr. Lang? Anyone from the public like to speak to this item? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.1.
Mayor?
Rosemary?
Yes.
I believe Rosemary has a comment.
I'm sorry, Rosemary.
I have a comment from Icy Gully of Clearwater Neighborhood Housing Services. I recently became aware of your public notice in the Sunday's edition of the Tampa Bay Times. The notice requested public comments on the city's increased allocation of $492,592 in CDBG funds through the CARES Act to be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. The public comments should reference our perception of how these funds shall be distributed. As you are aware, Clearwater Neighborhood Housing Services has been providing housing services to residents of the city for a number of years. With the recent pandemic, we have reached comments from these residents on current needs to maintain housing. They stated that they need financial assistance to temporarily pay their mortgage or rent due to being temporarily unemployed due to the stay-at-home mandate to address the coronavirus. They also noted the need for assistance to help them prevent foreclosures. We recommend that you allocate some of the funds for the activities listed above. We currently have staff that would assist you distributing these funds for the CDBG program. We request that this letter be entered into your public comments to the Neighborhood Affordable Housing Advisory Board and City Council. We thank you for soliciting public comments on this new funding allocation. Look forward to assisting the residents of the city of Clearwater.
Thank you, Ms. Gall, and we wish Ms. Gully the very best. Anything else from? Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a council member Beckman?
Yeah, I just wanted to say maybe Mr. Lane can speak to Ms. Gully's letter, because I think some of those concerns that she raises are some topics that I discussed with Denise, and that some of that funding is going to help people stay in their homes with Gulf Coast legal, things like that. Is that correct, Mr. Lane?
That's correct. I reached out to Ms. Gully since receiving the letter. We do plan to fund foreclosure counseling. We have 3 organizations, including Clearwater Neighborhood Housing Services, that we've been in contact with that will perform that service with us. And a fantastic service to have in support of that is Gulf Coast Legal Services, who we will also be working with. They help folks with fair housing issues, with mortgage folks facing foreclosure. So that's really where the lion's share of our public service dollars are going, towards that effort.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a motion and a second. Who was the second? I didn't catch that. Did
Second.
you catch it, Rosemary? Councilmember Albritton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item 8.2.
Approve the request from the owner of property addressed at 2850 Sunstream Lane, Clearwater, to vacate a portion of a platted utility easement described as a part of Track C drainage area Sunstream subdivision, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 143, pages 65 through 69 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, and pass ordinance number 9390-20 on first reading. Ms. Kivett.
Thank you, Mr. Horn, and good evening, Mayor and Council. The property owner requested the city vacate a portion of this platted utility easement to allow construction of an entrance sign to their new subdivision. City staff have reviewed this request and have no objections. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Kivett? We do have somebody in the public to speak to this item. I believe they're in chambers. If they could come forward and state their name for the record.
Hi, my name is Wayne Wells.
Hello, Wayne.
Hello, Wayne.
It's been
a
a while.
long time.
And basically, I am not here in opposition to the actual vacation of this easement. I'm really here to voice a concern about the legal sufficiency of the public notice. The public notice includes the legal description of that to be vacated. 99.99% of the people cannot read a legal description. And so from that aspect, nobody really knows where this is. Not until I read the council agenda item did I know what the address was. The engineering department's online application requires a address or a location of that to be requested to be vacated. So that information is available, but apparently is not being used. And there's also no application number that has been assigned to this to take and write your comments to. So I did write an email to Rosemary Call on Monday. I don't know if you all got it or not because I haven't received anything back that was received. But that's the basis of my concern. Again, I'm not really objecting to the vacation, but it's really how the notice is set forth. I voiced this or have written a separate email to Tara Kivett on other items that are similar. And this is really for a public information that the spirit of the notice is not, in my opinion, being met. That's the basis for my concern.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Ms. Aiken, can you address this? I have not seen anything on this yet, so.
No, sir. What we can do, if you wish to, you can either continue it and we can review it, or you can have first reading and we can report back to you before second reading. We will review the notice for legal sufficiency and give you our opinion before second reading, if that's what your desire is.
What's your pleasure?
I'm okay moving it forward and getting clarification before second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to that effect?
Move approval of agenda item 8.2.
Do I have a second? You're muted. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Wells. We will look into it between now and the second reading. Ms. Aiken?
Ordinance number 9390-20, An ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating a portion of a platted utility easement described as a part of Track C drainage area Sunstream subdivision, according to the plat thereof, recorded in Plat Book 143, pages 65 through 69 of the public records of Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Do I have a motion?
I move that we pass ordinance 9390-20 on first reading.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous. Item 9.1.
Ordinance number 9389-20, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending Chapter 32, Article 5, Division 2, Pretreatment and Discharge Restrictions, amending Section 32.211 to add definitions, amending Section 32.212 to specifically prohibit hazardous waste pharmaceuticals, to add requirements for dental facilities that remove or replace dental amalgam fillings, to add reporting and waste management practices for dental facilities, to require installation, certification, and maintenance of dental vacuum suction systems, and to provide exemptions from these requirements, renumbering subsections, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
Anyone from the
Go ahead.
public to speak to this item? Anyone from council?
I move that we adopt ordinance 9389-20 on second reading.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 10.1, Mr. Horn.
Thank you. Endorse the application for Project Last Dance and commit the City of Clearwater to provide local financial support, local match, not to exceed $10,000, which is 10% of the eligible tax refund upon certification by State of Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, and adopt Resolution 20-20. Ms. Sanderson.
Thank you. Denise Sanderson, Director of Economic Development and Housing. The agenda memo provides a great deal of information about the Qualified Target Industry Tax Refund, or QTI program, and the local match contribution being requested, so I won't spend time reviewing it. The Project Last Dance, which is the code name being used for this project, is expected to qualify for up to $100,000 in state QTI tax refunds over a period of 8 years should the company meet and maintain the job creation and wages requirements of the program, and should the company have a tax burden equal to or greater than the refund. Currently employing 4 people in its Clearwater location, the company intends to hire 10 new highly skilled and technical employees from the area in the first year, and a total of 20 over a 5-year period. As with all projects considered for incentives, staff conducted an analysis of the $10,000 local match. Over the job creation and payout period, we found the following. In addition to the 20 direct jobs, the project will generate 13.4 spin-off jobs. And economic modeling shows that it's over a 10-year period, the city will receive a net benefit with a 71.2% rate of return with a payback period of 1.5 years. Funding for the incentive is available in the city's Economic Development QTI program account. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Sanderson? Anyone from the public to speak to this item? As I said on Monday, I think this is a great way to leverage our dollars, so I'm certainly in support of it. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 10.1.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous? Ms. Aiken?
Qualified Target Industry Tax Refund Program with cash local financial support provided by 2 or more local entities. Resolution number 20-20, a resolution of the Governing Board of the City of Clearwater, Florida, the Clearwater City Council recommending Project Last Dance be approved as a qualified target industry business pursuant to Section 288 1.106 Florida statutes, providing for local financial support in the form of cash, providing for an effective date.
Anyone to speak?
I
Go ahead,
move
Mr. Adams.
that we adopt resolution 20-20.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous. 10.2.
Approve Clearwater's Back to Business Grant and Professional Services Program and adopt Resolution 20-21. Ms. Sanderson again.
You're
Ms.
on,
Sanderson.
Denise.
Yeah.
Give me just a moment.
Okay.
Technicals.
The PowerPoint.
Yes, thanks.
Sorry.
It's quite all right. Thank you, Denise Sanderson, Director of Economic Development and Housing. And are you able to see the PowerPoint?
We are.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. So Council, as you know, this is, we've been talking about this since the April 16th meeting. You provided guidance during that discussion, and this has come back to you with some changes along the way. We think it's a much better program perhaps than what we first discussed in April. So just briefly, as a reminder for those that may view this tonight or in future, this is a grant and professional services program. It is mirrored in many ways, bear with me, after the county's program. We have two components to this effectively. There is a brick and mortar component for businesses who qualify. They'll receive a $3,000 grant to cover business expenses. Additionally, professional services for up to $1,000, including business counseling, accounting, legal, marketing, web design, and related services, is to be provided by the city, or rather by the city funds. And when those services are completed, brick and mortar establishments will receive an additional $2,000 grant. Related, we have a home-based businesses component. Chuck spoke of that moments ago about we will be utilizing CDBG funding for this. And for qualifying businesses, home-based businesses, they'll receive professional services, as I've just described, for up to $1,000. And upon completion, based upon revenues that they are able to approve over the previous year, will provide up to a $2,000 grant. Bear with me, sorry. Funding for this program is $3.5 million out of general fund reserve. That is the ask of you tonight, along with approval of the program. That will be allocated for brick and mortar businesses only. As you know, there was a legal opinion issued that describes public benefit, and we felt strongly that brick and mortar establishment through ad valorem meets that metric. We will do our level best to reimburse with the maximum funding if possible, either through CRA or DDB, which requires future action, or other funds if they become available. The $0.5 million is roughly the CDBG funding that we have available through the CARES Act, and as I said before, it will be prioritized for home-based businesses. Any remaining funds through that program will be reallocated to the brick and mortar program as I've described. Bear with me. In terms of eligibility, qualifying businesses must first have a Clearwater business tax receipt for the current year. Although I do recognize there are a few exceptions in which BTRs are not required, and we'll be looking at those as well. Professional license, hair salon is a great example of that. A BTR is not required by the stylist, but the salon itself is, things of that nature. So we'll be having to do a deeper look on for certain types of businesses to ensure eligibility. Business operations must be located within the incorporated limits of the city of Clearwater. As you know, we have many that are addressed with Clearwater. They may or may not be within the incorporated limits. We'll be confirming that. They have 1 to 25 full-time equivalent employees, including the owner, and have been operating since at least October 1, 2019, and still open on February 29th of this year. Further, company must attest that they expect to return to full operation within a reasonable period of time following the crisis. And businesses that have already applied for or received funding from the county, state, or federal programs are still eligible to apply. We do encourage you to apply first to the Pinellas County program, however. Grant funds must cover expenses not already covered by other programs. Eligible businesses include the same as what the county's program includes, with the exception we are adding the home-based element. They include public food service establishments, bars, pubs, and nightclubs, non-essential businesses as identified in Section 5 under the County Governor's Safer at Home Order, short-term lodging and vacation rental management, those that collect and remit tourist development taxes is the limiter there, and finally, places of public assembly, those identified in Section 2 of that same Safer at Home document. Ineligible business types include publicly traded companies, nonprofit corporations, businesses with code enforcement liens. This does not mean code enforcement violations, but those that have a lien against the property, and those whose ownership is serving an active sentence for financial mismanagement. The application process. So if you'll indulge me, we changed this about 4 hours ago. This is still accurate. We're still going to be submitting applications using the online portal. We'll still need you to document business location status and employee count, demonstrate recent business income and expenses. If you're a brick and mortar establishment and wish to pursue the $2,000 second grant, you'll need to identify some professional services. That is a requirement of home-based businesses. Digitally sign and attest that all information is truthful, and that process should take 15 to 20 minutes. The change that we're implementing in order to be the most fair is that on Monday, May 11th, should you approve this program, we will require that businesses simply fill out Section A of the application. They are certainly welcome to fill out the entire application, but Section A of that application can be done easily through a mobile device or laptop, but does not require the documents be uploaded at that time. All of those who complete that will view it as a pre-application or registration. If they complete that process by Sunday evening, May 17th at midnight, all of those will be randomly selected for applications to the program. We do anticipate we're seeing folks in other communities being overwhelmed with applications. And so we don't wish to put people in a position where they feel that they must submit on Monday morning, May 11th, or that if they can't reach us, and we are only accepting inquiries via email and online portal that will be posted on our website. We don't have the phone systems that can handle the types of inquiries we do expect. And so we'll be responding to inquiries all week long to address questions that people may have, but they will have until Sunday at midnight. And after that, we will do a random selection to begin to put people effectively in a lottery, and we'll invite them to submit a full application at that time. So to be clear, we will not be reviewing applications for the week of Monday 11th through Monday the 17th. We will notify folks of their invitation to submit an application on Monday, May 18th or shortly thereafter. And for those who are not invited to submit an application, we do anticipate that those who submit either will not be able to fully submit an application, or they will fail eligibility, and we'll reopen that process again. And so I would encourage businesses certainly to continue to pursue the Pinellas County program. It is not a limiter for this program, but do understand that this will take a bit of time to push those dollars out. It's important to note that anybody who is approved for brick and mortar with Pinellas County's program, if they are a resident business of the city of Clearwater and can produce a BTR, they will effectively automatically qualify under this program for the brick and mortar $3,000 grant. They will still need to submit an application. Again, we will be inviting them to do so after May 18th in a random lottery selection. Bear with me. So this is certainly true. We'll ask you to submit a complete application. Again, that will be required when we invite you to do so after May 18th. City staff will review for eligibility. And then for those brick and mortar businesses, we'll be issuing that $3,000 check as quickly as we possibly can. For receiving the professional services and the second grant, or the only grant for the home-based businesses, all eligible businesses will again have to complete that application. We'll review it for eligibility, refer them to one of our partner agencies. Again, that will be Prospera, Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation, and Amplify Clearwater. Those agencies will match those businesses to professional service providers. Those businesses must complete that obligation. All fees will be paid by the city up to $1,000, and the city will Upon completion, the city will then process that grant of up to $2,000. This is important to note. This aspect of this program is intended to support long-term business recovery. Mayor, as you know, we have said on many occasions, we want to have fertile ground here. And so that's really what this component is intended to do, is to help these businesses with resiliency and perhaps in many instances, prepare for a new normal. So therefore, applicants should not expect immediate payment of these funds for the services and grants. Staff and partner agencies will do everything we can to expedite the process. And so in conclusion here, in summary, brick and mortar establishments would be eligible for a $3,000 grant, receive up to $1,000 in professional services, and upon completion, a $2,000 grant for a total value of $6,000. Home-based businesses will receive $1,000, again, maximum value in professional services, and up to $2,000 of a grant for a total maximum of $3,000. This is misstated. It will be corrected before we post it publicly. It is not going to be a first completed application first served basis. As I've described, we'll be changing that a little bit and doing that registration for a 1 week period. Of course, we will spend these funds until they are all gone, and we are making some guesses here as to how they may be distributed. These are estimates only based on the information that we have regarding BTRs and the types of business structures we have in the city. With that, happy to take any questions.
Any questions from Ms. Sanderson?
I have.
Councilmember Beckman.
Okay. Thank you, Denise, for all that work and for the multiple conversations you and I had about it. So I have just a couple of questions related to the changes that you made that you're discussing tonight. So if we approve of this, then people have a week to submit an application, or part A of an easy part of an application, and then they're put in a pool. Will they be put in a pool for brick and mortar, and then for home-based, will there be two pools?
Yes, there will. So we actually have two different applications. They are separate applications for home-based businesses and for brick and mortar. My intention is to do a pro rata distribution. So if we get 25% of them are home-based businesses that apply, and 75% happen to be brick and mortar, then our lottery pool will be just that. 25% of that lottery will be home-based, will be invited to apply, 75% on the brick and mortar.
Okay.
And part of the reason, if I may add, council member, part of the reason for this 1 week registration is that our libraries won't open up until May 18th. And we recognize that some businesses will have difficulty. Either they won't have the systems at home to fully complete an application, or they'll need to scan and upload documents and need to be able to use library services to do so.
Okay. And then when you have that pool of applicants in the brick and mortar and then the home-based, and let's just say we've got 500 in each. I mean, we're just going to make a number up. And then you pull, you randomly select, and hopefully, it'll be as however random, if you're going to pull numbers from a hat or however you do it. But then those people are selected to complete the application process. And then because some people will take advantage of the professional services and then get more money. How do you anticipate which ones will take advantage of that and want that extra, couple $1,000s?
Sure. Well, they would need
to know how many you're going to offer. Yeah.
They'll need to identify within the application if they're interested in those professional services, and speaking specifically about brick and mortar. Again, home-based businesses, it is a requirement.
Right.
So we'll have an idea of what types of services they may be interested in, but there will be a significant challenge in budgeting, as you might imagine, because we won't know entirely how much in terms of professional services they intend to utilize until we kind of move to that next step. Yeah. So I anticipate there will be several rounds in which we go back out to that applicant pool and invite additional applicants as money either frees up because we'll encumber it immediately, or because of out of the gate we find ineligibilities for various reasons.
And with that last comment that you made, like going back to the pool and notifying people, I was, one thing that kind of popped into my head is perhaps you could do the initial drawing and put people on a wait list, similar to college, so that they're not waiting to see if I'll be pulled again. You've kind of determined this next chunk of people, and they've been informed that you're on the wait list. And, it's just a little more knowledge than just, I don't know if I'm ever going to be pulled again. I don't know.
That's a great idea, and I'm sure that's something we can easily implement. In terms of random selection, we'll be talking to our software provider, the one that is doing these, where the portal is, where these applications are received, to see if they can produce a random selection for us. If not, then we'll look to an outside source to do that, so that staff is not involved in that in any way.
Good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Hamilton.
Denise, I know that the county and St. Pete's programs that are similar to this, neither one of them have home-based business eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, do you have any idea if they considered it and then decided not to go that way? Or what is the reasoning for them not doing home-based businesses and us to do it?
I'm not familiar with St. Pete's process. I am familiar with the counties based on comments that Mike Meindel, Director of Pinellas County Economic Development, made during a Board of County Commissioners meeting last week. I believe it was last week. So they did look at home-based businesses. What they found is many home-based businesses, their revenues are somewhere on average of $25,000 or less. And many of these home-based businesses were still eligible to continue to operate because of the nature of the business that they were conducting. And so at that time, they chose not to include home-based businesses in that round of funding. I do know that commissioners encourage they do a deeper dive, look at that for a potential phase 2 of the program. And so I do believe that direction was given. I don't know what they intend to do should there be a second phase.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Other questions from council? I know that we have a comment that the city clerk has, I believe.
One comment was submitted by Kathy Flaherty. The city does not have the funds to do this. The CRA funds are desperately needed to be used for what they are intended for, removing blight. If the CRA did not give hundreds of thousands already to promote downtown core businesses, only maybe there would be funds. The Downtown Development Board could return the CRA funds and the city could use those. General funds are taxpayer funded, and I think that there would be legal issues using taxpayer funds for this. It is a good idea, but there is no money.
Thank you. Ms. Aiken, can you chime in on that? You're muted.
Thank you. We did review the legal issue, and we have concluded that you have the authority to make the finding that this is a public purpose. If you look at the resolution, we have walked you through that process. The purpose of this is to retain and economic development. And you do have the authority under Florida Statutes 166.021 paren 8A to do that. So with the appropriate findings which you are making in this resolution, we believe that the Back to Business Grant and Professional Services Program does do that, and that you can therefore appropriately spend the general funds in that manner. These are not, one of your findings is that it does not cause the city of Clearwater to absorb any existing, new, or ongoing financial liability or debt directly or indirectly from the grantees of the program, nor does it result in the city of Clearwater entering into stock ownership in or joint ownership of the businesses supported, which are important from a constitutional standpoint.
Thank you, Ms. Aiken. I am very hopeful that some of this money is going to be reimbursed down the road from some other federal programs. I think there's a reasonable probability of that from what I am hearing from our legislative folks and the congressmen that I've talked to. So I'm hopeful of that, first of all, but I think this is a well thought out plan. I want to commend Denise for all the work that she's put into this. There were some folks that initially were critical that we didn't have a plan out sooner, but I think that you were really thoughtful in the way that this whole program is put together. And I think it's going to behoove us down the road. I think the majority of it's going to go to bricks and mortar. I am very much in favor of the professional services. I think those are critical. I think it's a way that we can leverage some of the dollars to help these businesses perhaps get assistance elsewhere. So I just want to thank you for all you've done, Denise, and encourage people to start applying on the 11th, and that there is not this frantic need to get it done at 12:01 Monday morning, but that they have a little bit of time. So thank you for all you put into this. Are there any other questions from the council? Councilmember Albritton.
Just a comment. I agree with exactly what you said. I think this is a well thought out program, Denise, and it was badly needed here in Clearwater to show that we do care. And I think I was real glad to see all the work that went into it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion? Councilmember Beckman.
I had one last comment to
Do you have a question or are you
to
making
respond to the resident. I had a comment for the resident who wrote in, and Rosemary read that statement.
Yes.
I just wanted to say in my discussions with Denise, I had kind of the same comment or question, and just to respond to that resident, it's my understanding that, you know, spending money from the CRA or the DDB comes with an additional vote down the line. It truly is that money may come from those things, but it's not mandated that it all comes through that. Right. And Denise included on that presentation, you know, and other funds. And I think when you made the statement that we're hopeful that more money will come down to cities our size, you know, perhaps that's where we can get some more money as well. But, you know, that CRA money and DDB money is not a done deal today.
And that is not occurring tonight. This is not a CRA meeting. This is a city council meeting. Right. So just to make that clear for the public out there. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 10.2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Ms. Aiken?
Resolution number 20-21, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, establishing the Clearwater Back to Business Grant and Professional Services Program to support economic development through small business grants and technical support, providing for the terms of the program, making factual determinations and legislative findings of a public purpose, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Motion?
I motion to adopt resolution 20-21.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 10.3.
The local mitigation strategy developed for Pinellas County and adopt resolution 20-18. Ms. Kivett.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Horn, and good evening again. I'm Tara Kivett, Engineering Director. The object of this local mitigation strategy is to develop a blueprint to provide a unified and consistent course of action to reduce the impact of natural disasters within Pinellas County. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Kivett? Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Or do we have any comments? Seeing none, have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 10.3.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Ms. Aiken?
Resolution number 20-18, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, supporting the local mitigation strategy developed for Pinellas County and recommending adoption by the City of Clearwater, providing an effective date.
Anyone to speak to the resolution? Have a motion?
Motion to adopt resolution 20-18.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 10.4.
Was 10.4
10.4
supposed to be on the
was
consent agenda?
Yeah, it's supposed to be on consent. So 10.5.
No, Mayor,
10.4 is a continue.
item 10.4 is to be continued. It
Oh,
was
we'll continue it
on
because of
consent.
the potential raising of the seawall.
Exactly.
My fault. So I have a motion to continue item 10.4.
So moved.
Second.
Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 10.5.
Confirm COVID-19 emergency proclamation and adopt resolution 20-19.
Council, this is your action to confirm the two previous declarations, the proclamations of emergency, from April 22nd, April 29th, also May 6th. And it also confirms the action of the emergency management directors, which is Mr. Horn, action on May 1st, reopening the city beaches effective May 4th.
Any questions on this resolution? Have a motion?
Do we need to approve the agenda item or just go to the resolution?
Agenda item, please.
Motion to approve agenda item 10.5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Ms. Aiken.
Resolution number 20-19, confirmation of COVID-19 emergency proclamations, May 7th, 2020.
Motion to adopt resolution 20-19.
Second.
Anyone to speak to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. I do not think we are going to get through, we'll come back to city attorney reports. I don't think we'll get through items 2.1 and 2.2 in 24 minutes. So I'd recommend we go ahead and take a recess now, and then we can come back and finish up.
Agreed.
Okay? So we will recess the council meeting for 5 minutes. Was Amplify, did they want to speak up front on this?
No, they said they weren't going to say anything tonight.
Okay.
Mike, am I correct?
They said that they did not plan on speaking. If there's something that we wanted to ask them, I believe Amanda Payne was going to be available, but they were not planning on making a presentation or anything like that.
And so who is going to be representing staff primarily?
Micah probably.
Okay.
But I'm going to make some preliminary comments though before we get started.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And Miss Payne is not there. Miss Payne is not here from the chamber. Okay. We will call the May 7th council meeting back to order. Ms. Aiken, did you have any reports?
No, sir.
Okay, item 12.1.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Business Recovery Task Force recommendations. Mayor and Council and staff has reviewed all of the Business Recovery Task Force recommendations, and we have provided you with a document that reflects our review and our response. All of the staff that were involved in contributing to the document are available for questions and further explanations if council has any for any of those. Mr. Maxwell spent quite a bit of time kind of collating and putting all of this together based on the staff input. So if you have some questions for him, he will then respond. Mayor, you and I talked and we had suggested that we just walk through each one of them, and the appropriate staff is available to respond to questions.
Okay, this is a bit of an unusual item, so I think just for the public, this was a task force that was basically convened by Amplify Clearwater, which for those who still don't know what Amplify Clearwater is, it is our former Chamber of Commerce, both our beach chamber and our regional chamber that merged together. They came back over about a 2-week period with 28 different recommendations, and the idea behind this was to improve the climate once the state was reopened, which obviously we are seeing this week. The staff has gone through each of the 28 requests. They have talked about the economic impact of those. They've given us some notes explaining their stance and their response to what they believe we should do. Normally, I would ask for public comment at the end, but I would like to ask Brian Oaks Jr. Just to say a couple words and also to identify all of the task force members, because there were questions about the task force and how it was assembled, and it really was assembled with a lot of business leaders in different sectors, from hospitality, hotels, restaurants, bricks and mortar stores, our healthcare system. And so if he could just give a quick introduction, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. First, I just want to thank the City Council and Mayor Hibbard for allowing this task force to have the expertise and the guidance from Denise Sanderson, and also for Mayor Hibbard's involvement. The entire intent of this was to be collaborative, helpful, positive, understanding that some of the ideas that were generated might not work exactly as they were intended to work, but that the intentions were good, and that we were trying to mobilize positivity and creativity, and the involvement that the city council and the mayor provided to us has been extremely helpful. Amanda Payne, the CEO or president of Amplify Clearwater, is also on the line. Her and our board chair, Scott Goyer, provided significant leadership and direction in this process. Amanda and I had about a 45-minute teleconference with assistant city managers Micah Maxwell and Michael Delk this afternoon. That was extremely productive. And as you get into each individual item, you'll see, I think, that there's substantive agreement on all of them, which is great. The other committee members that I haven't named yet were David Lillisand from the Clearwater Neighborhood Coalition, an attorney, served on many city boards in the past, and is also a member of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. Nancy Simony from Sand Pearl and Opal Sands. Lena Teixeira, you all know well, a community activist from Pour Yours and also the Downtown Merchants Association. Dan Shevlin from Clear Sky. Frank Chavez from Baystar. Brian Brink from Westfield Countryside Mall. Joe Farrell from the Realtors Organization, Pinellas Realtors Organization. Frank Dane, CEO of Clearwater Marine Aquarium. Lou Galdieri, the president of Morton Plant Hospital. Harry Glenn really provided insight as the city's lobbyist to the federal government regarding the CARES Act and the other evolving incentive programs and legislation that was moving through Washington, D.C. Eric Miller from Sports Facilities and from the Clearwater Downtown Partnership, and Shahab Amrani. I believe I mentioned everyone. Again, I want to thank you all very much. This isn't us as a committee saying you have to do these things. This is us saying we're trying to be helpful. We understand if some don't work, and we're here to answer any questions that you have or clarify any issues or questions that you might have about it. And I'm going to put myself back on mute. And if you have any questions, I'll try to unmute myself.
Thank you, Mr. August. All right. So I thought that the best thing to do was just to go through each of the 28 items. I don't think there's any other way. And hopefully we'll try to build some consensus around those and determine which ones we want to follow through on. Ms. Call, I will keep some notes, obviously, but if you could also keep some notes so we can go back and try to put together an intelligent motion at the end of all this after we've heard from any citizens that might want to comment. So the first item was to abate rent for city tenants, extend lease terms, which would be equivalent to the abatement period. There were some costs, obviously, to this. To the general fund of $54,000, to the beach marina $90,000, the air park $26,000, and also some lost revenue and commissions to the general fund of $141,000, the beach marina of $28,000, and $1,100 to the air park. This is an item that the staff is recommending against, and I would ask, I guess, Mr. Maxwell just to elaborate a little bit on that.
Absolutely, Mayor. So our approach was that, we have approved this evening, you've approved the city's assistance program. The county has recently approved their assistance program. These are programs which support, these businesses in paying their leases and paying their utilities, which is an item we'll get to a little later in the list. So we felt like having them go through the program first, and then if they have issues coming out of going through each of the programs, we can have some additional conversation. But to treat those as on a case-by-case basis rather than blanket, changing the or abating the fees that we are owed for the leases. So we're asking for them to have to go through that process, and then we would deal with those on a case-by-case basis based on several items.
Questions
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say this was one where I believe Amplify Clearwater and the city were in agreement on.
This is about a $340,000 expense. And so are there any questions from Mr. Maxwell on this particular item? Any comments? What are the feelings of the council on this particular item? Councilmember Beckman.
I concur with the city. I think taking it on a case-by-case basis is better than making it a blanket policy right now, especially in light of let's see what the other programs, just reiterating exactly what Mr. Maxwell said.
I would agree. Does everyone feel comfortable with that stance on this particular item?
Yeah.
Mr. Bunker, yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Albritton? I see a yes. Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I am going to warn the public that we are having some bandwidth issues, and the staff has already told us that at some point they may have to take our pictures down, which in my case would be beneficial. And our voices will still be here and I will still identify people, but we may need to do that just to keep the clarity of voices, which is the most important thing. So I just wanted to tell people if that happens, that is what is going on. Grant money for locally owned businesses, similar to the Save Pete Fighting Chance Fund. We've already heard that from Ms. Sanderson, so that item is a fait accompli and is done. Item 3 is defer permit fees and development fees. And there are some issues not only with the dollars behind this, I understand, but this would be a major change to our information technology. Mr. Horn, do you want to address this one, or Mr. Maxwell again?
I can address it. So Acela, our software program, would require some substantial alterations, which would be a fairly large time strain on our IT and planning staff, both at the front end of changing it, and then at the back end, if we changed it back to the way it is now, we would have again a significant change to the software. We felt like instead of making that change, we can just try to be as efficient as possible in processing our permits and inspections, and that this would not be something that we would support now because of the time that we would have to spend to put into it, and it probably would not be as beneficial to the users as hoped.
Questions about this item, council members?
I'm good with it.
Okay, so we will strike number 3. Number 4 is hold DRC and CDB meetings virtually, and obviously we've worked out all the kinks on that. And the answer is we are going to start holding virtual May DRC meetings versus WebEx. And then the CDB meetings are intended to start by when?
So the CDB meetings, there are some concerns about the legality of having them on the Zoom platform. I would defer to City Attorney Aiken for that item.
Mayor, we have recommended that having quasi-judicial meetings wait until we can do them live, because quasi-judicial meetings require that the public be able to potentially be parties, and the potential for cross-examination, submission of evidence. It's our recommendation that if possible, we wait until they can be done in a live meeting. obviously, if for some reason live meetings cannot resume in a month or two, then we can do the best we can do, but most jurisdictions are not doing quasi-judicial meetings at this time.
Is that something that the state is thinking of any ways to give relief, similar to what they have been able to do for our meetings, or?
Not that I'm aware of, because the requirements for a quasi-judicial meeting, it's not that they're requiring that there be a quorum. It's not the quorum issue. It's simply the ability to have the full submission of evidence and participation that's allowed.
Okay.
So it would just be very difficult to do and not run the potential for having a challenge to your decision.
So it is something, once the state goes to phase 2, will
Yes,
be
sir.
possible. So
Yes,
we probably
once-
will see that in June sometime, would be my guess.
And that's the hope. Staff is preparing for that, and that's why they're having DRC meetings again.
Okay. So we will put that as, any questions on that? I don't think anyone has a problem with DRC meetings being done virtually, and then CDB meetings being done as soon as possible. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Item number 5, extend permit DOs, DAs, deadlines, which is a part of Chapter 252, Florida statute, to invoke for all applicants. This is based on the current practice, and they're saying the impact is minimal. I know there's some comments from the chair of the task force, but Ms. Aiken, do you want to speak to this?
I'm sorry, sir?
I had you as more the city attorney on this, had more comments, or do you want to speak to this one, Micah?
I can certainly start it off here. Yeah, I mean, our original understanding of the request was that there would be an automatic extension of these items, which the city's attorney's office did provide some opinion on for our, that basically said we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that. That said, in our meeting with Amplify this afternoon, I think we talked through that a little bit more, and part of this was just a desire to have some additional communication by our staff and by Amplify to those individuals that may have an outstanding permit at this time, so that they're aware that they might be able to get an extension through the city. So we're going to try to come up with some good general communications with Amplify, and then we do have already in our system a notice that goes out at 1 month prior to expiration. So in combination of those things, hopefully we'll be able to achieve what was intended.
So for those in the public that may not understand this, with a development order, if there is a natural disaster or something like this virus, which is a crisis, and there is a declared disaster, my understanding, Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, is that an applicant can come in and ask for an extension based upon that time period that was lost.
Yes, sir, that's correct. But it needs to
Okay.
be done by the applicant. We don't have the authority to automatically ask.
To automatically do it for everybody, right?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Ongst, you wanted to chime in on this one.
Just real quick, Mr. Mayor, and the intention here is to make sure that everyone that is either going through the development order process or has a building permit, whether it's for a fence for their backyard or for their small business, whether they have sophisticated development team or not, is on a level playing field, and that they know that they have a statutory right to an extension based on the COVID-19 pandemic. And so what we discussed with Assistant City Manager Maxwell and Delk was a combination of Amplify and the city trying to blast that message out and it is absolutely true that the applicant has to invoke that right, and they have to do it in a certain statutorily prescribed time frame. But we want to make sure everybody knows that, and it's not just reserved for the few that can afford good representation. My clients don't need the benefit of that because I know it and I can tell them to do it, and it's a very cheap process. But I want everybody in the city to have that same opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council members on this? Councilmember Albritton.
So let me get this straight. If you need to have an extension, then you need to call the city and arrange whatever applicable time you need past what it would normally be. How are we going to, my question would be, how are we going to put that out there for the people that don't know that? Is it going to be something that they will see through email from, if they already have a permit, that will be electronically sent to them, or will it be in a form of something else?
We have not worked through all those details. We just had that conversation this afternoon. We haven't gotten with Public Communications and Amplify's Public Communications group to try to formulate that message. But, we anticipate doing something along the lines of the other communications that we're doing during this event. But we don't have any specific approaches to date.
Well,
try to put those together.
I mean, if they have a permit, an active permit, then you get all their information anyway. You could send them a letter, via U.S. mail. Just make sure they have it. A lot of people don't read every email that comes through, but when they, most people will open their mail. So I just want to make sure, as Brian said, that it's a level playing field and everybody understands what their right is on this.
If I can comment.
Yes, Mr. Horn.
Well, I was just going to follow up on Vice Mayor's comments. I think we've got to find a way to automate the process so that we are assured that when we send out the information that it is in fact read. I'm a little concerned that we are assuming that all of the people that we're trying to help will dutifully review the information that comes to them. So we've got to find multiple ways, I think, of doing this, because we know that sometimes people don't always, pay attention to the communication that we send out. So letters is one form of that. There may be other forms that we may have to consider.
And just to clarify, sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Maxwell.
I was going to say our focus for the time being is to focus on the general population. It was not necessarily to focus on individual permit holders based on their permit data. We want to work through that a little bit to make sure that we're doing everything per law, per state statute, and we're protecting ourselves as well. So we just need to work through some of those things. We may be able to provide some additional information on this at the next meeting.
I mean, I want to help people out who have permits regardless of what it is for. At the same time, there has to be some onus on the people that have pulled a permit and understanding that they have a delay. I mean, if we give them a certain level of notice, we can't babysit people either. So, Councilmember Beckman, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, didn't Mr. Maxwell, in your initial comments, didn't you say that people are given a notice when their permit is due, like in 30 days or something? Can't we include a statement in that notice that says, hey, you have, the opportunity to extend it if you need to because of COVID or something like that?
I'm not sure if that is possible or not. Potentially, it is an automatically generated notification, to my understanding. So I don't know if that can be altered. I don't know, what the back end of that is. That is something we could certainly look at, though.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Thanks.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we are going to work to communicate, but we certainly cannot do it automatically. So the number 6 is implement short-term variance process for CDC. And the comments from staff is this change would be very challenging to incorporate and would likely impact or inhibit our COVID-19 response. Do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Yeah. The change itself, which I believe was the Business Task Force had identified Pinellas County's process, is certainly something that we can consider during our upcoming code review. But to try to implement this right now, we do think it'll be a significant undertaking, and it will distract us most likely from, again, providing the fastest, best service we can provide to people in the next 3 to 4 months. So our preference is to continue on with the flexibility that the code provides, and focus on looking at this at the time that we review the code later next year.
Right. We need to keep our eye on the ball right now, but it's something we can address down the road. And there are things that I do want to address down the road. But other questions or comments on item 6? So we will push that one to the side. Item 7 is building permits. Use private reviewers, including site permits. Use private inspectors. Discount 66% for private review of both. Discount 50% for private review only.
Yes. So my understanding is that the Florida statutes define how we come up with that percentage. So there is a process that we need to follow and go through. We are planning actually on reviewing those later in the year. It's on the work plan for planning and development. So again, this is one where no problem taking a look and seeing what those correct fees should be based on the savings, but we think we should wait until that time comes later in the year.
And my understanding is the task force thinks to defer is not a problem as well. Does anyone have a question about this item? Councilmember Albritton?
Well, this was one of the things that I had been talking to the building department about on reviewing a system change with them. So I don't have a problem. I know they're talking about it. We've had conversations about it. So if we're going to be doing something like this and it's planned for the future, I'm fine with it.
Other questions or comments? Okay. Number 8, requires city reviewers' comments be raised by initial review, so no pre-existing conditions can be raised other than new once final has occurred. Potential for conflict with building code and licensing requirements is one of the main comments. Mr. Maxwell?
Yes,
Ford and I talked about this one at length, so go ahead.
Okay. This was something I think that was actually brought up earlier in the year. I know by Councilmember Albritton as well. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Albritton. It is a complicated area. I think that we've done our best to try to be as diligent as possible on the reviews. Sometimes they do go to a second or third review. And we want to continue to try to get better on those things. We have a business process review for planning and development scheduled for later this year. We're going through the process of developing the RFP when COVID-19 began, and that's delayed it a little bit. But we really want to take a look at the system as a whole, see if there are improvements, and that this may be something that comes in as an improvement. But we'd like to go through the process and take a look at the whole picture, the whole business process, and see where those areas of improvement might be.
Okay. Any other questions on item 8? Item 9, expand outdoor dining policies to aid with social distancing.
Yes,
this one's obvious. We're already seeing it on Cleveland Street, so I think it would be good elsewhere as well, Mr. Maxwell.
Yes, and we are focused on on working with restaurants citywide, not just on Cleveland Street. So we're very flexible. We're in agreement with Amplify Clearwater on this one. We're going to do our best to work with them and try to make whatever we can work.
Okay. Questions about that, council members? Comments? No. All right. Number 10, waive permitting requirements on sandwich board signage for a period of time. The never-ending discussion on sandwich boards.
And over the during this this event, we are looking at relaxing some of the enforcement rules on this to try to allow some of these businesses to advertise as best they can. So this is another one where we're in agreement with Amplify on. We're willing to be flexible on these things, and we're just hoping the businesses are able to make a comeback.
Have you thought a little bit about how long we want to look at? So we put a little meat on the bone.
We haven't discussed.
Go ahead, Mr. Maxwell.
No, I was just going to say we have not discussed a time period to date. But we can try to get you one by the next meeting if you'd like.
Mayor, I thought the task force had a timeline that they were looking at.
I don't have the exact. I thought it was 90 days for the back to business signs.
Mr. Ox, do you know? That's Brian.
45 days, I think. I think it's 45 days.
No, you're unmuted.
Give me 1 second. I've got the PDF in front of me. I'm just getting to it.
Yeah, it does not appear to have a date on it on the PDF. The grand opening signs had a 45-day period.
Okay.
That's what grand reopening.
It was
I do agree with the mayor.
Yeah. Go ahead. Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to re-mute myself.
Did you have another comment or not?
No, it would certainly need to be limited, and apparently we didn't provide a specific temporal time frame.
Mr. Horn?
No, I would agree with you, Mayor. We should have a time frame. 90 days. Do we want to use 90 days or longer?
I wouldn't want to exceed 90 days.
Okay.
And with the understanding that there are going to be unintended consequences of doing this, because once people have sandwich boards that have previously not been allowed, it's going to be tough to get them to go back to the old rules on sandwich boards. We have been discussing sandwich boards for 20 years, right?
Right.
I mean, we had a special code just for downtown, and so it's been an ongoing issue, and the art on the sandwich boards, if they're done professionally. And so I know that this is Pandora's box. It doesn't seem like it should be, but I know it is. And so I want to put some time frame on it. Councilmember Beckman, did you have your hand up? Or?
I did. And I'm just concerned about your 90 days. I mean, we have some businesses, bars, and salons and gyms that aren't open yet. So what 90 days are we talking about? I mean, I would anticipate the governor would relax those soon, but that's not a guarantee. Can we say like up to 4 months, or, I mean, I don't know.
We could do the days from when the phase that your business opened. So, the phase 1 businesses could do it now, and the phase 2 businesses would get the same time frame from when they were allowed to open. I think would be a reasonable way to do it.
Yeah.
Councilmember Hamilton and then Beckman again.
I don't disagree, but I think the actual enforcement of that is going to be difficult. I think you almost need to set a sandwich boards are going to be allowed until August 1st or something like that. And then when we get to August 1st, we reevaluate where we are. And if we want to extend it for another 30 days, we can do it. If we want to sunset it at August 1st, we can do that as well.
Okay, Councilmember Beckman and then Mr. Maxwell.
I think something like what Mr. Hamilton said as well. And, I'd say maybe till September 1st, just because there's so much unknown. And if you have some businesses that the governor says you can open next Monday, but they're not ready to stock and get their employees back, they may be losing a little time. I would err on the side of a little longer for these types of things. So much is unknown, and I don't think business is not going to be like a light switch and everybody's coming back all at once. They're going to need to continue to advertise for a long time, I think. A lot of our residents aren't even feeling safe to go out into those establishments right away. So I think they're going to need that advertising for a long time.
Councilmember Bunker, did you have something to add?
Well, no, but I'm curious about this 20-year war, because I don't think that I've ever seen a sandwich board where I've gone, oh my God, that infuriates me. So what's the real problem with having these boards? I know there's talk about, people bumping into them, they're a nuisance on the sidewalk, but is it such a huge issue?
There were issues with the nuisance on the sidewalk, and then some people had very professional boards done that were very attractive and nice, and then some people literally put it together, with cardboard.
Oh,
so it was kind of standards, and we
Okay.
tried it downtown, but we didn't have it everywhere, and then people were mad that it was downtown but not out in countryside or somewhere else. So it's been an issue. Maybe Miss Aiken can expand on. Literally, you could probably spend a lunch with Miss Aiken because she's been there through all of them. And I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Bunker. It's hard to believe that it could be something that's gone on for 20 years, but I swear to you, it has.
I believe that. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
I skipped over Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you, sir. I was just going to suggest that, we really didn't get into a conversation with Amplify about the time period or really with our staff. In 2 weeks, we will have a lot more information hopefully on where the governor is going, and we can reach out to some of the businesses and into our internal staff to find out what a reasonable time might be, or at least a recommendation that the staff can make you. And I believe Gina's up
Does
as
Ms.
well.
Clayton want a bite of this apple?
Not really, but Gina's involved in the department. I was just going to suggest that maybe it be tied to the final phase of reopening or something along those lines. That way it might be more fair to some of the businesses that have delayed openings. And if we have to keep track of something that's staggered, that'll be not possible.
Why don't we tie it for the time being until we want to change it till Labor Day? After the Labor Day weekend. Would that be acceptable to everyone? And if after, we adjourn from this, staff comes back and says, we think that's too long or it's too short, then we can always amend it. But does that sound reasonable?
I think it's reasonable.
I think so.
Okay. All right.
I'm good.
Item 12, use Parks and Rec impact fees and city traffic impact fees that they be used in the area of the development. And I don't think staff has an issue with this. I think we generally tend to do that anyway, do we not?
We do. It's in. Oh, go ahead.
If I may, that's basically the law on impact fees. Our ordinances do establish where they can be spent. They may be trying to shrink that area, but our ordinance establishes what the impact is, what the impact area is, and they are required to be spent in that area.
Okay. Questions on that from anyone? Staff doesn't oppose that. I did skip 11, I apologize, which is allow grand reopening signs for 40 days, 45 days.
And no issues on the staff side with that.
Okay, does everyone like the 45 days for the reopening? Councilmember Beckman?
I would just suggest just to keep it simple. And again, you're not sure when businesses are going to reopen. This could have a Labor Day date as well, just, I don't know, might keep it simple.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes, sir. So right now, the signs that would be considered, which are temporary signs, which would be considered grand opening signs would be considered, have a limit of 30 days. So really, we're just looking at extending it 15 days, and certainly we could use Labor Day as the cutoff for that.
Unless
Gina
they
has
are
come up
truly
again
a
as
new
well.
business.
Correct.
Ms. Clayton, did you want to add to that?
I just want to clarify that all commercial properties are allowed 4 temporary signs. Each one can be 16 square feet an area. 2 of those can have commercial messages. The caveat with a banner is that that's the only form of temporary sign that has a time limitation. So if you wanted to do some other type of grand opening sign that is not a banner, there's no time limit whatsoever on that.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. So what's your pleasure on time frame?
I still say give them as much time as we can. Keep it simple. It's only one date to remember. I just worry about the number of businesses that are going to be struggling to get people to come in the door, and I think they need all the help they can get.
Okay.
So I would vote for a little longer.
I could agree with that.
So we'll just go to Labor Day on that one as well. Is everybody amenable to that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 13, we already did 12. That's approved. Number 13, waive or defer BTR for a period of time, BTR registrations. And I think Ms. Aiken, you want to weigh in on this one? This is
yes,
business tax receipts for those folks who are listening that don't understand what a BTR is.
Business tax receipts are regulated by state law, and it is a tax. We are regulated by the state laws to what we can do. We can reduce by 5%, we can increase by 5% on a biennial review, but we don't have the authority to waive or defer those fees. So in other words, we cannot do that under statutory framework.
And really 13 and 14 are kind of companion on the business tax receipts.
They are. We can review the business tax receipts overall every 2 years, but there is a limit to where we can go on that structure without and still remain in compliance with the statute. So that is something that you can review at some point, but there is a statutory limit as to what we can do.
Right. Okay. Questions from council on those 2 items? All right, number 15 is waive code enforcement liens for first-time offenders.
Yes, so planning and development again has actually has an item on their work plan that is looking beyond the first-time offenders and at the at code lien abatements, generally. So we're currently doing that work now. We would like to continue to focus on that and try to finish the bigger program rather than focus on the first-time offender piece. Amplify seemed to be in favor of that.
Okay. Questions from council on this item?
I'm good with that.
I see nodding heads. Okay.
Okay.
I think okay, not tired. I'm getting hot though, I'll tell you that. Item 16, free or reduced parking for beach employees.
Yes, so we do currently offer reduced parking for beach employees. It is $40 monthly. Right now we have it capped right now at 450 permits. However, only 100 have been used to date. What we talked about with Amplify was ramping up some communication on the existence of those and trying to get some of the businesses to take advantage of that. And if we start working our way towards the 450 cap, we can reassess and see if there's additional spots that we can allocate to those. But today we have not gotten close to the 450.
Okay. Questions?
Comment?
Yes, sir.
Well, a comment, I had nothing to do with this request. I mean, for example, you know, my family, you know, the way we handle our employees, they're responsible for finding their own parking. But if they do come down and get a employee parking permit for $40, they bring us the receipt, we reimburse them half of it. So basically they're paying $20 for a parking space for the month. And that's about $1 per shift for most of them. You can't beat that. You know, to give, you know, to say, you know, free parking for all beach employees, I think is an unnecessary level. But I think, you know, letting more people know and, you know, letting the businesses know that these are available, you know, can go a long way.
Okay. Everyone in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Item 17 is assist childcare facilities to reduce rates. And I think part of this was also just thinking about the childcare issues that are going on for a lot of workers as they get called back. They don't have school in session right now. As I think I told all of you, or maybe I'm forgetting things, but you know, I had talked to Dr. Grego. They normally have school programs in the summer that kids are going to through either the YMCA or our club. And they anticipate that they're going to have something, but the issue is the distancing that the kids are going to have, the number of supervisors, the space that they have. And I think the main premise here is that I hope we are going to, and Mr. Horn and I talked about this at length, is that we're going to cooperate as best we can if we have facilities where we're not having a summer camp or something that also can take care of kids, that we make locations available and be creative and think outside the box so that we can kind of help with this process. And Mr. Cater, you might want to chime in on this one.
Absolutely. We will certainly work with the Y. We have programs that we work with JWB right now, and we are actually sat down today to discuss some of the options for us to open up, the city to open up our day camps again in a safe manner. We believe that we can do that. It will be certainly smaller than we have done in the past, but we will be able to meet some of the children's needs, as well as obviously the workers that need to get back to work and those types of things.
So questions or comments on this item? So I don't know that it's really a yes that but we're going to be cooperating, I think is really the term that we would want to use, right? Okay. 18, consider acquiring or allocating PPE to businesses.
Yes, this was an item where, and I see Emergency Manager Graham is here as well. This was really an item where, you know, we have a certain amount of PPE. We try to coordinate with the county and with the other cities in the county, with the county being sort of kind of a resource manager almost for all of us to make sure that the first responders and the essential employees have the PPE they need. In discussing with Amplify today, they expressed a desire to have some contact with us and see if we can put them in touch with the right people, either at the county or with vendors that we know of, to try to help them, you know, have an opportunity to get PPE if they don't have it. So we can certainly help them coordinate as best we can, at least.
Mayor, I'd like for Chief Graham to kind of respond to this. He's very heavily involved in the acquisition of PPE, and I think it's important for him to describe kind of the environment that we're in right now and trying to do that.
Yes. Mr. Graham.
Good evening. Javon Graham, Division Chief Emergency Management. Yes, getting PPE has been extremely difficult and has been quite challenging over time to acquire PPE for the city and for the staff. Early on, we were able to get PPE, and a lot of it was utilized towards our public safety, police officers, first responders of that nature. As time goes on, PPE gets stretched very thin, and now as we move towards reopening, trying to utilize it for essential staff is where the focus has been. However, we still fall under the same restrictions that every other business has as far as getting the approved equipment. When we try and order, a lot of times that if we can even get close to getting it, there's such a delay on getting PPE and even supplies that we're waiting for 2 weeks, a month. I've got some orders that have been out for almost 3 months now that we're told we're not going to get any supplies. So we've been having to be very cautious how we're giving it and how we get PPE. Another avenue that we're trying to utilize and do is that when we cannot acquire our own PPE for the city, we do go through the county. And how the process is, if the county has it, they give us a portion of what they can because they have to split it through all the entities, and then we can get it right away. However, if they don't have it, they kick it up to the state. And what we've seen, which has happened in the county, that when we think we're getting supplies coming to our direction, the state can reappropriate them and send them other places. And so we have a hard time, and it's very tough to guarantee what we can get on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that was considered was, if you look at an individual business, they would potentially buy some, but they're not buying in the quantities that would get them to the front of the line. The other thing I'm seeing and hearing about is a lot of disreputable companies that are misrepresenting what they actually have. My only hope was that maybe through the city's buying power that they could create a consortium that would allow our businesses to get some of the PPE. We actually looked at going out and buying masks for our clients, and the quantities that we had to buy were way beyond what we needed. It was 10,000 was the minimum order, and so that's the only thing I'm thinking of that could help businesses. If they gave us an inventory of what they would be willing to pay for, not to be given, then maybe we could put together a bulk order that could be used for Clearwater businesses. I don't know if that's possible, but that's just one of my thoughts. But I think the main concept of getting it and giving it away, we don't even have it right now to give away.
Correct.
So I'm going to put that one in the no column. Okay. Number 19 is collaborate with the visitors, with the CVB, and visit St. Pete Clearwater with coordinated marketing. And I think we are going to do that. We've already been talking to the county, and I am the representative on the TDC, and that's something I know that I want to do. Is the only thing I want to make sure, first of all, that we coordinate. I hope at some point the Clearwater itself may step up with a little bit of advertising dollars above our current budget when the time is right. And then I want to make sure if we do that, that the TDC doesn't think, well, then Clearwater's taken care of, we'll focus on the rest of the county with the money, which sometimes can happen as well. I could tell you back in, and Councilmember Hamilton could chime in on this one, but in 2002, right after 9/11, and in 2008 and 9, during the Great Recession, where we drew people from, which normally is the Midwest, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York City area, that completely changed to a drive market in the Southeast. And we were mainly getting people that didn't want to get on planes after 9/11 or didn't want to get on planes in 08, 09 because they didn't want to pay the money for airfare. And so they were going to drive markets. And that was really, we were drawing people from Birmingham to Atlanta to South Carolina was our main feeder markets. And I think that's something that the TDC is already refocusing on, that kind of a market versus our normal feeders. So we'll stay on top of coordination. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. 20, prepare a beach with new safety health standards, provide hand sanitizing stations. We already have new sinks that have been installed out there temporarily. We have our ambassador program. I think the chief, our public communications department, Mr. Graham, I think everybody has done a marvelous job. I think we've tried to think of most everything that we can to keep people safe and to put out a good message for the beach. Are there any further comments or questions on that one? No, everybody in agreement. 21, extend deadlines for all CRA grants. We can't really talk about CRA because this isn't a CRA meeting, so we could talk about that at a CRA meeting to discuss that. So that one would have to be deferred anyway. 22 is work with Amplify and others to develop small business concierge services, provide a contact to help make connections to resources, funds, programs, and incentives. And I don't think there's any question that we'll continue to do that, right?
Correct. We have employees already tasked to do those things.
Okay. We're almost there, folks. 23, defer abate utility payments for residents and businesses for a period of time. We don't have an exact cost on this, but it would be potentially exorbitant. Mr. Maxwell?
Yes, so we sort of related this one back to, again, at least the business side of it, the number 2, which was the leases, and actually I think that was number 1, and the ability for those to potentially get covered out of the city or county monies. You know, one of the main issues with deferring or abating utility payments is that we have bond covenants that would require some payment of or the payment of those funds by another source, you know, which would end up being our general fund. And there are some significant concerns that I know Finance Director Ravens has about the long-term financial health of the city related to its bond rating, and actions that we take could affect that. You know, we are currently providing no late fees at the moment to try to help people through this time. We've always provided flexible payment schedules for people if they have issues paying their bill. There are some programs as well that we work with the nonprofit community on to try to help people that cannot pay their bills. We would recommend continuing those processes and not using general fund dollars to cover the utility bill payments.
And there are also some not-for-profits out there like the Salvation Army and others that help with utility payments, and people need to be aware of that if they're running short. Okay. 24 is develop and coordinate marketing campaign across marketing agencies countywide. This is kind of back to item 19. And then 25 is develop local shop campaigns, events, incentives, roll out when appropriate. So
yes, and the CRA
really
is already.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Maxwell.
I was going to say, thank you, sir. The CRA is already working on this piece, and they have of course, have an agreement with Amplify to help provide some special event services. So so that will be helpful. Looking at the city city property, the whole city, we believe, and Amplify agreed in our conversation earlier, that they may be a better entity to provide the service, though staff does support trying to help them financially with putting that on. We could try to identify some funds as we move forward and closer to that.
Okay. 26 is to have the mayor film a PSA, support your city's businesses. I'm happy to do whatever. I don't know if you all want that, but, and then 27 is established temporary sheltered market for small business doing business with the city, fund the net increase cost of insurance city requires, provide net one payment terms, challenge other large business institutions to establish a similar program.
Yeah, so the big issue with sorry, thank you, sir. The issue with moving forward with the temporary sheltered market, and this is something we've discussed internally for a while now. First of all, it is not currently allowed in the ordinance. We could make a change, but it is not currently allowed. Our feeling is that this isn't the time to try to implement something like that and disrupt our accounts payable processes. That we can still look at doing this in the long term, but let's focus on trying to get those bills paid as quickly as possible. Now, a net one probably is not doable in most situations, and sometimes it's because there's some complicated reviews of bills. But we have been trying to pay those bills as quickly as possible. And that has been a focus of the finance department and the departments generally. So we're trying to keep it down to something in the net 15, net 10 range, if possible, and we will continue to do that during this event.
Okay, questions or comments? Mr. Bunker.
Yeah, for those watching, can you explain what a sheltered market is?
Well, so what we've talked about is something similar to what the county has, which is giving some preference to local businesses, smaller businesses, local businesses, potentially minority-owned businesses, those sorts of things. There are several different versions, I would say, of temporary sheltered markets, but those are sort of some of the areas that we've discussed in our conversations about the purchasing policy changes, purchasing manual changes.
Does that explain it to your liking?
Sure.
We can try to get you some additional, we can have some additional conversation if you'd like.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments there? I guess Amanda Thompson has something to add. Ms. Thompson?
She's muted.
Oh.
Hi,
Oh, there
Amanda Thompson, Community Redevelopment Agency Director. We will address these items in the CRA meeting for what's happening with our recovery task force. I also did want to let you know that you'll notice the 400 and 500 block of Cleveland Street have been closed to vehicular traffic. And under the governor's orders, you can do outdoor dining for restaurants. So we're providing more of our public space for them to set up chairs and tables outdoors to start serving patrons there while maintaining social distance. And I just really appreciate all the staff and all the merchants working together to make this happen so quickly. You'll notice more restaurants opening up over time. We're going to do this through the month of May. We'll look at extending it if it's working well for everybody. If the governor's orders don't change and we're still in this phase one, or if we need to make other adjustments, we will. So just wanted to give you that heads up on how we're supporting businesses immediately. Any
I'm
questions?
thrilled to see it in the CRA, but I'd also like to see it in other areas if we can accommodate businesses. It'll make customers more comfortable. It will increase capacity dramatically. And so I really believe it's a win-win if we're just creative in how we do it, as long as it's making certain that people are safe and the areas are cordoned off, but also to let people spread out a lot more. My imagination just started running wild last week with what we could do with some of the areas. So I just hope we avail people of the opportunity. But thank you, Ms. Thompson. Any questions for Amanda? Okay, I think so that we are to 28, which is continue support of local hospitals and other healthcare providers in their efforts to deliver critical healthcare services to the community, support efforts to promote COVID-19 testing and tracing for our community, encourage ongoing efforts to promote health and wellness for those who live in and visit our city. So we are doing that. Mr. Horn is on the board of Baycare. We did have the CEO of Morton Plant on this task force. And I want to thank Council Member Bunker and Beckman and Mr. Horn. We were out at Morton Plant thanking all the nurses and doctors and staff, and the firefighters brought out a bunch of different apparatus, and the police were there, and Chick-fil-A was giving out food, and Rita's was giving out Italian ice. It was, there were a bunch of people that were working on those front lines that we talk about that were pretty moved. And it still wasn't enough, but we certainly thank them for all that they do. So I have no on items 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 23, and 27. 2, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 17, 19, 20, 22, 24, 25, and 26 as yes, and 28. And then 21 to be deferred. And I wanted to ask Ms. Payne just to make some comments, and then we will open it up to the public to speak to this item as well. Ms. Payne?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, City Council members. We appreciate your considerations of our recommendations. There's certainly a lot of time and effort of members of the business community that went into making the recommendations that were in front of you tonight. We also appreciate the time that the various city team members put into reviewing these recommendations. Your kind considerations and thoughtful deliberation of each of these recommendations tonight is much appreciated. Certainly our businesses face the uncertain times of what recovery and reopening looks like for them. So I know this will be an ongoing conversation, and certainly look forward to continuing to work with all of you as we move towards the reimagining of our future together.
Thank you, Ms. Payne, for you and Mr. Onks guiding this process and the cooperation between the city. I want to thank all the committee members that put time into this and thought, and they also went out to all the people that they know and asked their opinion on different items. So it wasn't limited to just the brain trust of the group. It was also them going out and talking to other business acquaintances and organizations to find out how they could make an impact. I don't know if we have anybody still at the chambers. No one over at the chambers. Is there anyone on the phone, Joelle, or anyone who wrote in Rosemary? Okay.
I do have one comment that was received electronically
Okay.
by Kathy Flaherty. The city does not have the funds to do this. The CRA funds are desperately needed to be used for what they are intended for, removing blight. If the CRA did not give hundreds of thousands already to promote downtown core businesses, only maybe there would be funds. The Downtown Development Board could return the CRA funds and the city could use those. General funds are taxpayer funded. And I think that there would be legal issues with using taxpayer funds for this. It is a good idea, but there is no money. That is it.
Okay. So any comments by council members? Any further questions? Councilmember Bunker and then Councilmember Beckman.
Yeah, thank you. Mrs. or Miss Turman called in during the public comment section, and she greeted us saying hello to the men and women of the council, and that made me feel good. It was nice to hear that. And also, you just mentioned, Mr. Mayor, the all of us gathering to celebrate the folks working at Morton Plant Hospital, and it was great to be a part of that. They took incredibly great care of me when I had a triple bypass there in 2017. So, I mean, they saved my life, and they're saving lives every day. When I left, going to my car, I did meet an ICU nurse, and we struck up a conversation, and we continued it on Facebook afterwards. And you know, I was happy to hear that they do have things under control at this point, but there was a lot of concern among the folks working there that with the lifting of the stay-at-home order, things could dramatically change very quickly, and we could be swamped. So I hope more than just applauding, more than just giving them, you know, free ice cream. I hope we appreciate the actual situation they're in, where their lives and their families' lives can be lost with this too. I went out to the beach on Wednesday afternoon, and I was greatly thrilled to see that everyone was behaving and that there were great spaces between families, and all was quiet, and that I thought was a great sign. And I hope that keeps up this weekend, even though it's going to get a little more hectic. I'm just hoping that we all continue to behave and not allow this pandemic to spread farther here.
Thank you, Mr. Bunker.
Thank you.
And I think those were your closing comments, but I still need a motion on item 12.1, and then we still have item 12.2. Did you have something else to add to 12.1, Councilmember Beckman?
I did not, but thank you for asking. No.
Certainly. Do I have a motion from someone to approve the items that I listed and deny the items that I listed as no's?
I will make the motion based on the numbers that you read out as no's, yeses, and deferments.
And I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Wonderful. Item 12.2. Councilmember Beckman.
Thank you, Mayor Hibbard. So I am proposing, and we went over this at our work session, that we send a letter to our governor on behalf of the people in our city, our workers. And I thought, you know, of this because we had all the great work done by the Amplified Clearwater Task Force, and we have a group representing Clearwater Neighborhoods Coalition who are working on suggestions that are going to present to us at our next work session. And I just want us to really make a symbolic gesture that we are aware of what our workers are experiencing. I am aware of it. I've reached out to residents to ask them to share their stories with me. Are you getting your unemployment? Have you gotten your stimulus check? All those things. And people are struggling, and there is incredible frustration. And we heard Senator Hooper give that report. And yes, the governor is taking some actions to help relieve the pressure on the system. And he's now taking, you know, he said written, you could do paper applications. They were available at FedEx. I didn't know about that. That's great. They'll even be mailed in. That's good. It's a start, but we have a horrific backlog. And I believe the system needs to be changed. And, you know, Senator Hooper even used the word pittance today in describing the $275 taxed benefits that workers will get for a, you know, tied with the lowest in the nation, 12 weeks. And I do understand that, you know, as Mr. Hamilton said, business owners are maybe asked to pay more into that unemployment insurance fund. But, you know, the unemployment insurance is to help people get over a hump when they are unemployed. And $275 a week is not enough for people to live. I mean, we have a high cost of living here in Pinellas County, and 12 weeks will not be enough. I have participated or listened in on a number of the Amplify Clearwater webinars talking about what is the new normal and what is our economy going to look like. And even Denise Sanderson, you know, has said some of these businesses are not going to be coming back, you know, and that people are not going to, you know, sadly, and I hate it, it seems that experts are telling us that we are going to have significant unemployment challenges for way longer than 12 weeks. And so I think writing a letter to the governor asking him to take action, and you have a copy of the letter, and I toned back a little bit of you know, I took out the word, I think I had, you know, something, I substitute weakest for, I don't know, something that was a little more inflammatory, but I stuck with the facts. And so I would like the gentlemen of the council to sign on to this letter with me. If you choose not to, that's fine. I'm going to send it myself, but I think it's a symbolic way to let our workers know we hear you. We understand that this is a problem that needs to be rectified, whether it's the next, you know, state session or a special session, which Mr. Hooper has said there's not going to be a special session, but it is something that needs to be changed. And there's been national attention on Florida and our $275 a week for a minimum of, you know, a maximum of 12 weeks. And I just think it needs to be changed. And I think the power of a council, rather than just one council member, is I might as well ask for it. I think it would carry a little bit more weight than just mine.
Thank you. Comments from the other council members?
I have my pen.
Councilmember-
Yeah, I'm happy to sign.
Okay. Councilmember Albritton?
Well, I've got a couple of things that bother me about this. I know that as we discussed on Monday, there's been a tsunami, as the mayor said, of applications that came in. I mean, any kind of program probably wouldn't have worked even if we had a great one. So I know that Florida, I've heard from the governor. In fact, right after we had our work session, I got an email that said that, you know, verified that they had a problem and they were going to revamp the system. So I don't think we need to make a comment that we need to have the system revamped because they're well aware of it. And as Senator Hooper said, you can write a letter, it'll go on the stack of a million other letters that are coming in. So I think they're aware of it. As far as upping the employment number, I agree. Unemployment is not a it's just a help until you can find another job. But what'll happen is you got to see where the money is going to come from to give more unemployment. Even now with the the way that the trust fund, the fund is probably going to be depleted, and even paying the $275 a week is going to require more of a payment by business owners, putting a more onus on them where they really need help right now. And I just think now's not the time to do it. I think we will probably, when they revamp the system, we'll do something to look at it and make it better in all ways. But I don't think writing this letter is the right thing for the city council of Clearwater to send right now when they know that there's a system that they are going to work on and it needs to be repaired.
Councilmember Hamilton.
I'll try not to be redundant with the vice mayor, but I mean, writing a letter, I mean, we're all aware and we're all concerned about the unemployment mess, but I take a more practical, realistic look at it. And as Senator Hooper said earlier, you know, the system worked very well until we got hit with a pandemic of proportions no one ever dreamed of at any level in any state. And for us to, you know, send a letter saying, fix it and get it, I kind of, the best analogy I can give on this would be like seeing a guy getting out of his pickup truck and pushing it through an intersection because it's broken down, and pull it up next to him and say, hey, your truck's broke. You need to get a better one. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help. You know, you got, and if anybody believes that the governor and his staff and the people in Tallahassee aren't aware with about what's going on, I don't know where in the world you get that impression. Now, again, the money, making suggestions on money, you know, I've done this job for 12 years. We get letters all the time. And Frank, I know you can agree with this. We get letters all the time telling us where we need to get better and we need to do something. But rarely is somebody able to identify a realistic funding source for what they want us to do. And I don't know that sending a letter to Tallahassee and not being able to offer a realistic funding source for it is something we need to do. And I personally am not comfortable putting my name on a letter going to Tallahassee right now, giving that kind of, you know, just basically telling them your system's broke, you need to fix it. They're aware of it. They don't need me telling them that. I mean, if Councilmember Beckman wants to send this letter off with her own signature on it, she's more than welcome to do that. It's her right, and she can do it. But I'm not comfortable with my name on a letter of that type going to Tallahassee at this time.
Councilmember Beckman, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the initiative because I appreciate that. I like seeing that you're jumping in to the deep end of the pool, and I appreciate that. And I know you're passionate about that. I think we're all passionate about people. And I don't think we understand how much some people are hurting right now. I get to see it because I get to be around my wife who's been in not-for-profits for 20 years trying to help people that are far less fortunate than we are. And I don't ever want to take that for granted. I will say I was hoping that you were going to alter the letter a little bit more than you did. And I didn't want to get into, you know, all five of us wordsmithing a letter. That's why I know you and Ms. Aiken were working on some things. So let me give you my stance, because I don't want to be discouraging. I do think that the problem with the software up in Tallahassee is extraordinarily well known. So as I stated on Monday, to me, I don't think it helps us, especially when we still want a partner. I am always in support of advocating for something for the city that we think will be discussed in a legislative session, or to advocate against something when the state is going to mandate something, which they often do, we call them unfunded mandates, where they tell us we need to do something new, but they don't tell us where the money's coming from, and they certainly don't send the money to us to help do it. Those are our favorites. And the state in recent years has really enjoyed getting into, in my opinion, the local government sandbox. And, you know, we have 67 counties, we're all different. And I'm not going to go on that rant tonight, but to think that we can do blanket lawmaking for the entire state, I think is bad. So my point on that is I am sensitive to governments above me doing it, and I don't know that I want to do it to them. So I'm not crazy about the section on castigating the state on the unemployment system, which is clearly broken and everybody knows it. The other section, which is talking about the addition to the $275 per week, my main question there is I just would like to understand more what it would look like if the benefit increased statewide, what that would do to the unemployment trust fund, and then in turn what it would do for unemployment insurance payments by employers. And I do not want this to be misconstrued by anyone watching. I'm not saying this because I just want to protect employers. I also want to make sure that employers don't get such a disincentive to actually cut employees. Because at some point, you know, you will have less employees because you don't want to be paying the unemployment insurance. And one of the things that the senator did tell me over the weekend when I called him about some things was there is talk that that payment might double. And that is a perfect example of unintended consequences, which is one of the things I always encourage all of us to think about. Try to think about as many unintended consequences as we possibly can. But I don't know what this mandate would do. And I don't know what the number ought to be. Should it be 300? Should it be 350, 400? I don't know. And that's the reason I have hesitation on that portion of the letter, is I'd like to have a little more knowledge of what we believe the right number is, why we believe that number is the right number, and then have an understanding of how it would be partitioned out to the different participants in paying for it.
Can I have a response?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so a couple things, and I don't want to, it's not meant to get into some philosophical discussion about, what we pay our workers and the 275, but a statement that our system worked very well, 6 months ago or something, when we had record low unemployment at 2.3%, it worked well when it wasn't needed to work, when we really weren't engaged in any meaningful way. And there's been criticism that it was designed, not to work very well. But I would just say, if we're not going to pay people an unemployment benefit that they can actually live on, and if we're not going to extend those weeks, we're going to be paying for them in some other way. They're going to be at shelters. We're going to have to provide public services for them. I mean, these people are not going away. And I think it's, for my personal philosophy, I think it's better to give people a dignified income rather than to supplement them with welfare or something else like that. And so, that's just, what I think about. And, I'm not a politician. I did never plan to be a politician. And I would just say, when we ask about where that money is going to come from, and whether or not employers have to put in more money, when we're one of the, I think it's just 3 or 4 states in the nation without a state income tax, you get what you pay for. And I mean, that's a whole other thing. And I would, never get elected to anything if I brought that up. But it's true, it shows in the way we treat our workers. And so I'll send my letter. It'll be from me, and that's fine. And
I think Mr. Bunker is willing to sign on to it as well.
Okay, that's fine. But I do appreciate
can't sign
the
on to it in its
perspectives.
current format. I just can't.
Okay.
If we altered it
Okay.
more, I might be able to, but in its current format, I just can't.
Okay.
And
Well, if you feel strongly, you can write your own letter, right? Just like I did, and we'll just go from there.
but I do appreciate the time and this conversation, which I think is a good one.
It is a good one. It is a good one.
And, and Councilmember Beckman, this is one of the ways, though, that we can proceed is when we start working on our legislative agenda for the next legislative session, we can ask the legislature to look at the minimum wage in the state, that is something we would like them to explore. And
I'll make
that's
a trip up
normally
to
the way
Tallahassee.
well, I always made a trip. I plan to make a trip this year. I know Councilmember Albritton did, and I'll get right to you, Councilmember Hamilton. But I mean, that is one of the ways that we normally do go about trying to alter the legislative process. And Ms. Call may have something to add, and I think we have Ms. Turman, who looks like she probably wants to speak to item 12.2 about trying to alter the legislative process. And Ms. Call may have something to add, and I think I'm hearing myself, which is weird. Ms. Call, did you have something to add? You're muted. Rosemary, did you have something to add?
No, I do not, but I do agree with a suggestion. That is something that could be added to our legislative agenda for the next session. And as I work with staff, I will present it to council. So if there are items that council does not see, that would be your opportunity to go ahead and add it to the agenda.
Okay, could we unmute Ms. Turman, please?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So basically, I concur with everything that Councilwoman Beckman just shared. I understand we have to look at it from the business standpoint as well, and the implications on business owners. However, I don't know how many of you all have ever had to, number one, go and utilize the state reemployment system. It was a failure before this happened, and it's even more of a failure now. Yes, I know that they're aware of it. So that's one thing. And I was tuned in when, Mr. Hooper was, talking about and letting us know that he was aware of what was taking place. When we talk about where the money is going to come from, what we find is that whenever there is a need, we always find a way to find the money from somewhere. We just gave a huge, huge tax break to a lot of folks who really didn't need it. Okay, so when there's a will, there's a way. And not only that, I take a little bit of offense to some comments that were made that implies that people are unscrupulous or applying and are not worthy of getting the unemployment. But $275 a week, I'll tell you, to take care of a family. We already know we have a housing crisis right now. People can't afford to rent an apartment. $275, what that pays for absolutely nothing. So I'm just going to say this, and I understand that they already know, so you don't want to add to that, but they need to be aware. People are suffering, and they're suffering even more so because of the amount of time that has lapsed since this whole thing has taken place. So, Councilwoman Beckman, I'm with you 200%, and I got a whole bunch of people who are willing to sign that letter with you. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Turman. Councilmember Bunker.
Thank you.
Yeah. Back believe when you were last mayor and the economy collapsed around the country and around the world, I was working at a TV station in San Diego. And I watched the newsroom just be decimated. Week after week, people were being let go. I mean, I won this Emmy though. Oh, you can't see it, but I won this. But I still, at some point, a year or more down the road, I was cut free as well. And thankfully, this was in California, where you did have a livable amount granted to you for way longer than 12 weeks. And it helped me segue into a new life. And unfortunately, maybe unfortunately for some of the folks here on the council, you know, it kind of led me here. So it's no shame to have to be on unemployment. It's only a shame when the Florida system was built to fail to begin with. And I agree with the senator that, yeah, it's going to sit in a pile. It's not going to be read. It's not going to make a difference, even if it was handed to the governor and said, you must read this. But it will show at least we care and we understand. And so I'm happy to join with Kathleen in signing the letter as well. And I understand the city's point of view and the point of view of the others here on the council. But sometimes—
I don't want it to be construed that we don't care about people, though.
No, and I don't mean to suggest that. But I think it helps if we say we know what people are going through. We know how hard things are. The senator said businesses did not ask for this COVID-19. Well, the workers didn't ask for the pandemic either. And they weren't mentioned at all. So I think we have to, and it's one of the frustrating things that, you know, I'm learning about, you know, in office, that there is limited things we can do, but we can at least show that we understand and that we know what you're going through, and we'll try to do something about it, even if that effort may be fruitless and futile. We can try until something works. And that's why I ran for office, because we got to care for the folks that are living here in Clearwater. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Bunker. All right, anything else on this item? I do think that there is going to be more federal aid that is going to be coming out. I think, you know, I live in the financial markets on a daily basis, and I just do believe that there is going to be more federal money, that they have turned the taps on and they are not going to turn them off for quite a while. And that is going to help a lot of people. It may not help them as much as they need, but it's going to be significant. And there will be some day when we will have to pay for it all, but I guess we will worry about that down the road. So with that, I think, Mr. Bunker, you've had your closing comments, unless you have something else to add.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Councilmember Beckman.
Yes, I have a couple. So
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you to all those who submitted written comments, and thank you to those people who called in. Many thanks to Amplify Clearwater Business Recovery Task Force for all of their hard work. And especially thank you to the staff for that spreadsheet with all the comments and recommendations and legal ramifications of the suggestions. I thought that was fantastic. I wanted to say thank you to our police and Parks and Rec employees for working to make our beach safe and clean. I think it's good to see people out and about getting fresh air, but I've seen hardly anyone wearing a mask. And so that's a little concerning to me. I wanted to also mention that I've heard from a number of residents that they're concerned about testing and the availability of testing. And I know in today's, Tampa Bay Times on the front page, the story was about how those testing sites aren't quite working the way they were designed to work. I had a resident who lives in North Greenwood who she owns and runs her own daycare center and is concerned about testing and would like to have testing. She suggested pop-up tests in different parts of the city during different days. And I think that, that's something that sounds like a good idea. Maybe we could work in tandem with the county and try to do that. But the fact is, it seems like there's not enough supplies. I'm also concerned about our stage 1 reopening, mostly because we're not following the CDC guidelines, the guidelines of scientists that set out prior to any beginnings of openings based on science. And so to me, that is a concern. I'm choosing to stay home, although I've ordered Sherry Heilman's Mother's Day dinner. And then finally, I would urge anyone who is watching to please check your voter registration to sign up to vote by mail. You can go to votepinellas.com, and you can also call 727-464-8683 and simply request to be put on for a vote by mail ballot, and it'll come to your house. And I hope you all have a great Mother's Day weekend and be safe. That's my 3 minutes.
Thank you. Councilmember Albrecht.
Well, that's a hard act to follow there. I want to thank all the Business Recovery Task Force people that put together the plan from Amplify. And I want to thank city staff too. They did a good job of going through each item and coming up with recommendations. I think that a lot of these recommendations will be resolved. The ones that that we did talk about that were not there, but I think they're going to be in the works. I'm happy to hear that. And I just want to say so that's not misconstrued out there. Everybody that's here on this council cares about the citizens of Clearwater. That's why we're here. I mean, that's no other reason. And, we all have our passions and the things that we came in with to try to help see get done. And I think each of us have different avenues on that, which I'm glad. I'm glad we have the diversity so everybody can take something and run with it, and we can get a lot more done that way. So I'm ready to see phase 2 open. I think that generally the public has been very good of social distancing. I would like to see more masks when I go out. I can tell you that. I don't want to see it mandatory, but I think everybody just do it as a courtesy to everybody else. It's not going to help you, but it just shows you care about other people. So wear a mask. And then hopefully in a couple of weeks, we won't have to. We'll see how this goes. So I know we're going to see more people that come down with this because we're doing more testing. But I'm glad that the hospitals aren't overflowing and that we got over that. That's why we flattened the curve, so we wouldn't have that rush on the hospitals. And so now they're opening up for other things, other surgeries, and that's a good thing. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Hoyt.
Well, there's a lot of things I could say, but what I'm just going to say is, it's great to have different views because that shows that everybody's being heard. But I agree, there's not anybody on here that doesn't care. But, we also have different personal and professional backgrounds. I've lived in Clearwater all my life. I've been here in Florida all my life. $1 in $3 spent in Florida is spent by a tourist. So there is revenue that in the case of, say, Councilmember Beckman from Illinois, Illinois is not known as a tourism hotbed. So they don't have that revenue source that we do. So, things work out differently, but it doesn't make one right and one wrong. But as far as phase one, phase two, we've all been down this road far enough now where we all know what our personal health situations are. We know what precautions we need to be taking for ourselves. But it's also time. We cannot freeze this country's economy and our local economy forever. We absolutely cannot do that. I mean, life is a series of risks. I mean, we're going to all leave this building tonight, get in our cars and drive home. We're taking a risk driving our cars home. So we can't protect everyone from everything. You've got to experience things, and we've got to get back to normal. One of my fears is, what is the new normal? I mean, when everybody says when we get back to normal, what is going to be the normal? For my family's business, is the new normal going to be 100% of capacity while observing 6 feet separation? Because that new normal, if that's what it is, that's about 40% of capacity. And that's not, you won't see the Palm Pavilion much longer if that is the new normal, and that's what we have to abide by. So, I mean, we've got to get back to living our lives. I mean, I've seen that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to have 2 Monday night games, 2 Sunday night games, and a Thursday night game. We are, because of Tom Brady, we are everybody's team now. And hopefully there's an NFL season. But we've got to get back to living our lives. And the people, like I said, and I started out, everybody knows what their personal situation is and the precautions they should be taking for themselves. And it's, as life, it's personal responsibility in most cases. So.
Thank you,
And with that, I'll
Councilmember
jump off
Hamilton.
my soapbox.
Okay. Well, the best comment I've heard was from Thomas Friedman, the economist, and he said, we are trying to protect lives and livelihoods.
Absolutely.
And it is a difficult balance. And he said, if too many livelihoods are ruined, there will be literally fatal consequences to that as well. So nobody's in an enviable position right now. So I think we all just need to work together and understand that our actions do affect others right now, and we need to be careful. With that, please remember to practice social distancing if you're planning to visit Clearwater Beach, because our police are going to be out there and enforcing it. And I would ask that you cooperate with our officers. We're trying to make Clearwater Beach safe. We have our ambassadors out on the beach, which are helping people understand what the distancing rules are. We have temporary sinks out there that people can wash their hands. We ask you to bring your own PPE, bring your own gel and wipes and everything else as you come out. Please help us with that. By making yourself safe, you make others safe. Parks and Rec, all city recreation center pools will open on May 11th for pool use only. Ross Norton Skate Park and Henry L. McMullen Booth Tennis Complex will also open on May 11th. Gymnasiums, fitness centers, general programs, indoor facility rentals, the Aging Well Center, and the special events will remain closed at this time. The recreation facilities will enforce social distancing at all times. Masks are recommended, but not required, but please wear one. Clearwater Summer Camps, the City of Clearwater is working hard to coordinate the logistics and make the best decisions for the safety of residents, visitors, and staff. The city is currently working on a plan to conduct summer camps safely. More details on that will be shared when final decisions are made. Libraries will reopen on May 18th. As Ms. Sanderson said, you'll be able to have computers there to finish up any of those applications. The Feeding Tampa Bay is continuing to do free lunches for students at our Parks and Rec department is partnering up, and that is Monday through Friday at Ross Norton Center at 1426 South MLK from 12:30 to 1:30, and then it moves over to the North Greenwood Rec Center from 2:30 to 3:30. The Salvation Army food distribution continues from 3:30 to 5 at the Social Services Complex, which is at the corner of Highland and Druid. Again, please understand that people right now are stressed out. They have financial stress, health stress, family stress. I've talked to a bunch of parents that don't want to be teachers anymore. I think they appreciate teachers more than they ever have, and they want them to, they're ready for their kids to go back to school in the fall. So practice a little patience, help out our officers, and finally, I want to thank all those mothers out there. None of us would be what we are without them. So let's celebrate them, whether in person or virtually this Sunday. God bless you all. We are adjourned.